they're not processing this. But the point was, it's just authority.
Yeah. But here's what I got out of it. Because while you were talking, I was actually starting to get kind of hype. And the reason why I was getting hype was because I had read books in the past where they were talking about things that people did in like the 1800s and back in medieval times, what people were actually doing. And I had thought to myself then when I was reading those books, like, man, if I knew what I know now, being in that position then, where like they didn't know, they had no idea what was going on. They didn't have an education. You couldn't, like, it was the Wild West out there in a sense. Like, yes, there was a lot of like, there's a lot that you can't do, but having the education and understanding things on this level, I was like, dude, I would love to be in that position because I'd fuck shit up. I'd be like a fucking king. And as you were reading, I was realizing like we're in that position right now.
Yeah.
Where they're like literally everyone around us is being dumbed down and everything else is being stripped away and taken away. And we have the solution and we have the education and we have the ability to go out and share this with other people and get them to see it and get them to like, oh, you know what? This is helping me. I can improve my education. I can go, like, it would actually fix things in society in the way that, like, if you were in, feudalist, I don't know, middle Europe, I don't know, wherever, 1400s, right? And there were peasants and, people in the working class, and you came in and you were like, hey, look at these kings. There's not really much difference between you and them other than they have a bunch of money, they have a bunch of control, right? But if we could educate ourselves and come together, we actually outnumber them. And we could actually create a society ourselves. We don't need them to tell us what to do. We could actually create a society for ourselves that takes care of us ourselves. And I've always that used to always be like a little thought in the back of my head, right? But now that's where we're at today. And so now it's like, okay, cool. This is like a dream of mine. Am I actually going to do it? And I was getting hyped because I'm like, fuck yes, I get to do this now,
Yeah, being a distributor for TechnoTutor is like especially today, because you can use TechnoTutor and it's going to improve your vocabulary. It's going to improve your ability to process information, all those points, the benefit of it, right? But then you have to ask yourself, okay, if you had a higher vocabulary, if you had the ability to process more information, like today, what would you do next?
Yeah.
What would you do? I mean, just say the average person, what would you do?
Let's
say you can read like Bill Gates, you can process information, you can think like that. What would you do next?
I learn a new language.
I think that's the average person would say. And then they'd be like, oh, I'd start investing in, stocks. I'll know exactly which stocks to invest in or something.
Right. But now if you're being honest about the state of the world and where things are going, because, we were referring to this book, The Coming of Neo-Feudalism by Joel Kotkin, where he talks about everything. If you're paying attention, it's interesting when you read it, because it's not like I'm reading and I'm like, oh, anything new.
Can you just read it again for people who are just listening?
It's called The Coming of Neo-Feudalism, A Warning to the Global Middle Class by Joel Kotkin. And what I'm saying is, like, when I read it, it's literally like, well, yeah, obviously this is what's happening. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, wow. Oh, shit. Whoa. It's like, no, this guy's just describing what I can plainly see happening. If you had read this 5 years ago, you'd be like, oh, wow, interesting. That could happen. I wonder. Yeah. But you read it now, if you're paying attention, it's like, yeah, he's just describing what's happening. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's like, how dumb do you have to be to not realize there's a tech oligarchy who is figuring out how to control and restrict everything and eliminate all competition of small business, medium business, everything. And all ability for government to control them. using the government rather to get the people, the middle class and lower, to submit. And then removing any opportunity for them to own anything, which means they'll never be able to be financially free so that they could ever represent any resistance to what is being demanded of them. It's like, if I can just it's like if you owned your own business, right, and you didn't care about anybody coming in and doing anything, you could just say whatever you want. You could be like, yeah, you don't have to wear a mask, you don't have to do anything you want in here. But if the government comes in and says, well, we're going to shut down your business, take away your license, you see what I mean? Like, you're fucked, right?
Yeah.
If you have a restaurant, and the problem with restaurants is they're so governed by health codes and health and sanitation and all that. So it's like, they're so fucked because the government's like, oh, it can make people sick. Oh, okay. Well, you know what I mean? But more importantly, what the tech oligarchs do is they're controlling the perception of everything. Because think about it, like, why are the restaurants being shut down? Because of this pandemic, right? But where does the pandemic exist for most people? Only
Online.
in their head.
Yeah.
Only in pictures and images. They're not experiencing it directly. The only experience they're having of it directly is having to wear a mask, not being able to go certain places. They're not experiencing, by and large, any effect of it, like from a death, dying perspective. I mean, we were just talking to a bunch of people, and it's like every person's like, oh yeah, I know somebody who tested positive. It's like, were they sick? No.
And how do you know that?
You know what I mean? And it's just like, this test said that you're positive.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I could take, like, you know, like, okay, I was like that joke, like the stud finders.
Yeah.
You know, you could take that and like beep it on somebody, be like, oh, you got COVID. It says you do. And they're like, oh shit.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how easy would it be to manipulate that? So you have this sort of class of society who's controlling the perception of everything, and also controlling what you're allowed to say or not. So it's not just like they're saying what they want to say and everyone can say what they want to say. If you say the thing they don't want to say, they can deplatform you. They can put tags on your post, fact checks, block it, make it disappear before.
That was my favorite part of the Instagram terms of services video from Awaken with JP.
Yeah.
It says, if you have any kind of your URL with any part of your username in it,
your Instagram username, yeah,
they can close your account.
Right.
Like you need written consent. Basically, you need written consent to use anything from your Instagram handle in a URL, which is like, it's funny because in the Awaken with JP video, he was showing like Steven Crowder, like this person, they all have that. And so the funniest point,
it's like literally their names.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like their Instagram handle is their name and their website is like their name. Yeah. And the funniest, I might butcher this, but he said, it's like Instagram thinks of consent the same way Bill Cosby does. She came on the first date and she was unconscious. So it's okay.
Yeah. That's such a good joke.
It's such a good joke. And the analogy is really accurate. It's like you're using Instagram, but you have no idea. You're totally unconscious of what is in the terms of service, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had the resources to, anytime you even signed up for an app, you'd be like, let me run this by my team of attorneys.
Right.
But can the average person do that? Otherwise, they're just basically not allowed to communicate, basically. You know, and that's why in that book, it was saying these tools that were supposed to be for democracy and grassroots have become the tools of control. Right. So you have, there was a point I was trying to make earlier about, you know, this whole thing, but it's like, oh, the common sense of it. Who can't see that you have these tech oligarch overlords doing that? And then that you have the class of like academics and experts, scientists, like you just go on Twitter and you'll see them. Anything Trump says, anything anybody says, they're like, well, I have a PhD from such and such, and and they tell this stuff. And you're like, it sounds all great.
You know, Oscar from The Office, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that, right? And everyone assumes he must be smart because he's the head accountant or whatever, you know? But so you clearly have that. And then you have the middle class And then you have the group of people who own property, own their own house, have maybe some land, have some investments, things like that, maybe own a business. And then you have just people who just work. And that's the vast majority of people who just work. So they're, of course, going to go along with anybody in the government who says, hey, we'll give you a stipend to basically a monthly income, but you have to agree to X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? It's like the terms of service. You have to agree to wear the mask. Like, if you really look at it, you take the China model of surveillance and social credit score. You see what I mean? And then apply that to a basic income. And then apply within that the wearing the mask and the vaccine and all that stuff. It's like the perfect way of controlling.
Yeah.
And then you don't have a choice because everything is tied up. And all these people who are pushing like Bitcoin, for example, which, as I've said before, you can probably make money with it. I'm not saying you can't. I don't have it. I don't own any Bitcoin. But people who are pushing that like it's the solution, like it's going to change everything if everyone just does it. That's always what it is. It's the same thing with like flat earth theory, right? Hey, maybe there's some valid points in flat earth theory. I'm not saying there isn't some validity to the arguments that are being made. All I'm saying is the argument of people who obsess over it is always, if everyone realized that the earth was flat, they'd realize we're being controlled and there's actually infinite resources and everyone would just wake up. It's like,
that's the most probably the most popular thing when I hear like somebody reached out to me on Facebook. They're like, whoa, you seem to be doing well for yourself. But you know,
like, yeah, tell me about it.
I'm like, what gives you that impression? And he's going through it, and at the end of it, he's like, but you need to be part of what I'm doing. And I was like, well, what do you see the solution is? He's like, enough people with this certain biological thing in them need to wake up. I was like, okay, so what's the result of people waking up? He's like, you know, like they wake up. I'm just like, man, that's as far as it goes.
What does wake up mean?
And you made a great point of how people will just basically abuse the gin information by hearing, okay, I have to set an intention, get a burning desire, put a picture of what I want, right, up on my.
But that's but that's not the gin information.
Right. All right.
That's common sense.
Exactly right, but it's common to. That's the whole. Anyways, the people.
I'm just saying
the people who are going into gin, like it's taking into context. The people who are going into gin are the people who haven't necessarily found success for themselves.
Right.
Therefore, it wouldn't be common sense to them. But basically, they put the picture up. They get excited about something, and they think, "I thought that was the answer. That's as far as you need to go." And then it's just a matter of time.
But hear me out for just a second.
Let me make one more point. Level 7 members, 6 members, doesn't matter. It's like the biggest justification point that they use is, well, you can't hold on to the time aspect of things. You just have to let go, because if you're putting counter intention to it,
right,
and it's going to keep it from coming in.
Right. So, but I just want to make a clarification. It's not specific to gin.
Right. That's true.
Because I just don't want anyone. I want anyone who's listening to this to not think like we're saying something bad about gin. We're not. Like, I'm a gin member. I've been a gin member since 2013. But
exactly.
But the point is that when a person comes into anything and they don't know how to change their vocabulary towards what it is they're trying to do, they'll just try to fit it into what they already know instead of themselves changing. They want to stay the same, but they want the world to change around them.
Exactly. It's thinking that anything else people think gin is the answer is the point. Gin is the perfect system of support. This is the only reason why all of us got connected, which is an amazing thing, right?
It's the whole reason of it is having network.
That's why it's in the name, right? Global Information Network. And so it relates to the flat earth point, to the people need to wake up, all that stuff. It's like, if people just did what I did and knew what I knew, then the world will be a better place. Okay, what do? I'm a insert total slave job here.
Right.
Exactly. I'm or even total slave business. I sell masks online. Like, you know, whatever it is. I do Forex. Like, it's like, so you're saying that you have your job that you do for 8 to 10 hours of your day, and then you're waking people up on the side?
I spend 16 hours of my day asleep.
But all it really is just getting obsessed about some particular information.
Now, let me be clear. This is for anybody. If you're doing Uber, if you're doing what's now considered this like level of self-employment where you have freedom and all that. But what about, Cameron, you made this point. What about when Uber says, okay, you can only be part of our network if you're safe? What's safe? Are you wearing a mask? Which are you doing? Did you get vaccinated? Are you wearing the pants that we prescribed to you? Like, we don't know how far he'll go, right? It's like you have to wear the pink
Or
pants.
even if it's just like, sorry, you were near somebody who,
Right, your account's shut down for 14 days. Right?
because we can't let you drive right now because you were in some place, or there's some information or some group, like you went to your flat earth meeting and they know who's in the group because it's all GPS location, all that shit. And then they're like, you can't do that thing anymore because you're over here saying this. So for the people who just like want to be a slave in the system, they're probably like, so what? I'll wear a mask. I'll get a vaccine. I'll do everything I'm told. Like, right. Okay. You're fucking stupid. Like that. Those people aren't going to listen, but it's the people who believe that they have some level of freedom. And so it's like the desire to wake people up is cool, but you have to have something practically that you can do to help people wake up. And it's not about if they knew about this information, they would wake up, because you already have to be somewhat woken up to process that information in the first place. So it's not the solution, you know? And if anything, if this global pandemic / corporate power grab / election crazy shit, like everything going on isn't waking you up, I don't think realizing that the earth is flat or round or a fucking hologram is going to change anything.
It'll just make you more depressed, despondent, and pessimistic.
But also, how is it going to change your ability to deal with reality?
Yeah.
Like, oh, if I realize the government, there's infinite land out there because it's actually round or it's actually flat or whatever. It's like, so what? Suddenly you're going to know how to do what? What about everyone else? If everyone already knew how to be self-sufficient or at least self-responsible, they wouldn't put their kids in school in the first place. They wouldn't be going to the doctor every year for a quote checkup or some bullshit. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't already be putting their hands in their responsibility in the hands of somebody else. They would use an expert when it makes sense, but they wouldn't put all their responsibility for some entire aspect of their life into someone else's hands just because they have a certification in the system.
Hey, and the home improvement industry, they would always give free service calls to salespeople, so they can just go back and be like, yeah, everything looks like it's working really well. You're very happy with everything. Okay,
Yeah.
I noticed that you didn't have your AC done yet. We can do it for you too.
Right, of course. Like you're doing that so you can go back in and find out and resell them or whatever. That's like, of course they tell you need to go to the doctor every whatever, you know, or whatever it is, you know. And I'm not saying in some cases it's not a bad idea or not a good idea or whatever. But my point is, it's when you say, I can't know anything about this particular area of my life because there's an expert who knows about it. But if you were self-honest and you looked at what's the process they've walked to get to that point, what did they do? All they did was memorize a bunch of shit and repeat it on tests. That's all they fucking did.
I had somebody say, this is way back, and I wasn't even saying this, but they were making some point about something being a conspiracy, and everybody thinks it's a conspiracy. And they were saying, oh, what? So you're saying that millions and millions of doctors, people in the medical field, are all in on some conspiracy? Really? All the doctors are in a conspiracy? No. It's like the reason that we have this way of dispersing information called a pyramid is because only the people at the top have to know what's going on. Because just like in school, did you really question it? Did you even have time to question anything? It's the same way that soldiers
Did you even know what you were doing half the time?
Exactly. Soldiers, you get the briefing to go carry out your mission, and you just go do the mission.
It's like people don't realize teachers don't know a lot. Like a lot of teachers have no clue what education even is, or how a child's brain even works or processes information. They have no clue. And like, I mean, if that's not really evident and clear today, you're blind. Because if you just look across the board at what's going on in virtually any district, you just pick out a school, kids are failing that were never failing before, right? And they have no clue what to do with these kids, right? And I'm not saying that it was fine before. It wasn't, but it's even worse now. Like they can't even get to that level now.
David Coulomb Pepe, shout out David Coulomb Pepe. He is saying there's not a single child going through the education system today who's going to be successful in the world to come.
Oh, for sure.
And we're watching it happen all over in front of our eyes. I'm like, oh, that's really well said.
But what you were saying earlier, Drake, about people failing that weren't failing before, like, can you explain more of that? What you mean by that?
Yeah, like I was looking up just statistics because virtually every day, definitely every week, I'm meeting someone telling me about how their kids are failing. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because I don't remember this happening, a year ago where everyone's like just straight up failing, right? And they're like, no, you don't get it. My kid is a good kid. They're smart. They were doing really well last year. It's just this year it's so hard with all the, adjustments and being online and everything. And I'm like, everyone has the same story. And so I went to look it up, like, okay, how many people are actually failing across the nation? Is this just like a local thing or what? It's virtually every district is saying they're seeing double the numbers of failing kids than they did in previous years. And in some districts, it's as high as 46%.
Whoa.
Yeah. 46% of kids have one or more Fs. That's what the statistic was.
Nasty.
Right? So doesn't that just show you right off the bat, they can't handle, like half of the kids are flunking. That's not even including kids with Ds, right? That's
True.
kids with Fs. And then they're suggesting, well, maybe we shouldn't be grading kids on the same scale that we were because this is a different year. And, it's not fair. It's not fair to them. And so they're moving towards like, well, maybe we should just have a pass fail grade. And that makes sense from a certain context, but then from the other
Only
context,
if you're thinking about the grades are what's important.
Right. Because
so
in
are they
reality,
actually saying, oh no, if we can relook at how evaluate whether they're learning and we can see they're actually learning and that's why we should pass them.
Right.
Or is it, we know they're not learning the same way or they're not accumulating information in the same way. So we need to change it because otherwise more people are going to fail. So we just need to change the grading criteria so more people pass. Not, oh, look, guys, they actually are learning. It's just our grading system is the problem. We were making it seem like they were failing because we were just grading them incorrectly, but they actually do know it. That's not what's happening.
Learning. They're not actually learning. That's the problem. That's the huge problem, is that so many kids right now are not actually learning. This is not effective. Why do you think that is, though? Why do I think that is?
Yeah.
Well, because, if you look at it from the perspective of this is a smash and grab, like this needed to happen. You have to dumb down society. And this was, even before the pandemic, there was already a path or a trend of kids being dumbed down.
Can you please call it Pandemic 1?
Sure. Even before Pandemic 1, kids are already being dumbed down. And you could see it not just in, what was it? The National Report Card was saying that, right? Mm-hmm. That the scores were the same as 20 years ago, but also within Common Core, what the SAT and ACT, who have nothing to do with Common Core, but they grade students every year and they know what to expect. And they were saying, dude, these kids who just went through all 4 years of Common Core, they are the worst prepared for the next level or for higher education than ever before.
Okay, pause for a moment. Who is the guy behind Common Core?
Billiam Gates.
All right. So that's the guy who's been the driving force behind the changes in our education system.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. And so anybody who's like even not on the conspiracy bandwagon, just looking at it like, oh no, but Bill Gates is awesome with the vaccines and all this stuff. It's like, look what happens when you give him the responsibility here. You have to kind of think maybe he's doing it on purpose. You see what I'm saying?
Pretty
Like, and people, the average person can't relate to it. Why would someone that powerful want to dumb everybody down? But then at the same time, who's to blame for all the problems in society? The rich and powerful people. Doesn't everyone simultaneously think both of those things?
Yeah.
True.
So it's like people are so dumb that they can think that the person who is the savior is also the person who causes the problem. That's, I mean, what other kind of double think can you really achieve here?
But isn't that also usually the case? Is that the person who presents the problem also holds the solution, right? As far as like not in real life, but if you want to control someone,
Right,
you present the problem, and then you have the solution available, so that you can be the savior.
And it's cool when it's an actual.
hold on. Presenting the problem, meaning explaining the problem, is necessary to show them why the solution is necessary. Yeah, that's different than creating the problem.
Exactly. That's
So
what-
that you have a problem to present.
That's true.
That's the difference here,
That's true.
right? Because you do have to point out, here's the problem and here's the solution.
It's cool when it's
Whether
like
you
that.
have the actual solution or not, you could just be, you see what I'm saying? But that's the difference. You can create a problem that's not even a real problem just by using words to make it seem like there's a problem. That's why I was reading this book earlier, right? Because it's like you read it and you're like, okay, I'm not making this up in my fucking head. It's obviously not that I'm thinking that, but somebody else might be thinking, oh, you're just creating this problem because you have this techno tutor, which can make everybody able to be, thriving in this future where you need high information processing and self-responsibility. It's like, yeah, okay. Are we actually making up that problem?
No.
It's a real fucking problem.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the biggest points is people have really bought into this idea that if you have a credential, you know something. But everyone knows somebody who has a credential who's a fucking idiot. So what it really comes down to is like you're hiding behind someone else's credentials so you don't have to take full responsibility. And the average person, I think, let's say the average person who's like, yeah, everybody should wear masks, all this stuff, yeah, it's take the vaccine, everyone needs to do it. Where are they really coming from? Is I don't know a way to fucking solve this problem. The problem generally. So they're thinking these experts will figure it out because I don't know how to do it. It's the people with the lowest self-esteem.
Also, please just don't take anything away from me. Like, this is already tough. I'm just trying to get by. Please don't make it any harder.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And
Look, just go along with it and we won't get hurt.
it's like-
Right.
But weren't those same people, I'm just saying the mindset in the beginning, like, guys, what, it's such a hurt to your ego to wear a mask for a couple weeks or for like a few days. Give me a fucking break. Like, it's just a couple weeks. You saw that, like, that's what's so cool about social media is like you can see what everyone's thinking in real time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the memes, it's it's the same comment over and over and over and over from different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is that argument now?
Oh shit.
Don't you guys know like this is here to stay?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not like it's going anywhere. What I don't understand though is, you see all these things of China, like they apparently figured it out or whatever, and now they don't have to wear the mask and all that. But if this whole thing is real, like how do you know when the next virus is happening? Like, shouldn't you be wearing a hazmat suit at all times? All the time. Because even if they're like, okay, guys, the pandemic's over, there's no more COVID-19 or whatever, we're good, you can take the mask off. How do you know, like the next day, you didn't get the first fucking COVID-20? So,
By the way,
logically speaking, how can it ever end? Once you agree to it, it makes sense in this case. To me, it's like, well, it has to make sense forever now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to also reconcile the fact that you've been mass murdering people your whole life by spreading the flu and everything else that's been killing people who, even one person that it's like you spread it to this guy, spread it to this guy, spread it to that guy, spread it to that guy, and that person died because they had immune deficiency.
Yeah.
That's because you didn't stay home, you bastard.
And like, what, it wasn't obvious before that you can spread viruses by breathing and shit. Like, but now suddenly it's like the scientists are like, we've really been looking into these masks and we really think they actually work. And, we have to get the data still. And it's like, how do you not already fucking know? You see what I'm saying? Like, the whole thing is a fucking scam.
Yeah.
The experts don't know anything. All they know is what they were taught from a book. Where did that book come from?
One of their schools, one of the teachers, somebody wrote it. Somebody decided, hey, this is the information that we're going to teach. And actually, like, if you want to sell things, that's what you would teach. You would teach, like, okay.
Imagine you were living at the time of, what's that guy, Copernicus?
Uh-huh.
And didn't he think, like, was it Copernicus or Galileo? Which was the one that thought the Earth, the Earth went, or the sun went around the Earth?
Copernicus,
right? Or he thought it was the other way around, right? But at the time, everyone thought it was one way, and he was saying it was this way. And then they like did all this stuff, and it's a big deal. Like we've all heard that story.
Yeah.
Or we've all heard the story of everyone thought the world was flat, and then they realized it was round. And Christopher Columbus and all this shit. Whether any of that's a true story or not doesn't matter. Everyone knows these stories, right?
Yeah.
When has science ever been right?
Science is like, well, okay.
And what are the odds that you're living in the one time in history where we finally figured out everything and we know everything? And there's nothing we know that's not wrong.
Right. That's a great question. That's a great question, because a lot of people will use the argument, for we've known this. We've known there's, the sun goes around the earth for 200 years now, or, however long. I guess it'd be more like 600 years, right? 600 years now we've known that. And so it's like, okay, but for literally 1600 years before that, or whatever, however long people have been around, they thought it was the other way around. So you tell me now we know?
I if you really think about it, right, there's nothing that's different fundamentally between the three of us. Any human being, we all have like similar emotional states, all that stuff. And I ask people who put so much stock into what any one particular group of doctors say, it's like the way you feel right now of fuck, I don't really know much. And yeah, I went to school and I got my degree in this, but ask me anything on political science. I'm not that confident in it. Why would it be any different for anybody else? There are a couple of people who really, really, really enjoy what they're doing, but it's like, generally speaking, if you talk to people who have university degrees and you start quizzing them or whatever, it's like, they're just kind of like, yeah, no, I just got the degree. Right. And it's like, I remember, I don't know if I told this story on the podcast or maybe it was on other chats that we do, but it was this point of, I wanted to see my vitamin levels. I wanted to check on my vitamin levels just cause I was like, I'm taking like vitamin B and I see my energy go up, or just remain consistent when I was studying back in the day in school. I was like, oh, I'm curious what my vitamin levels are. So I go to the doctor, I request to get the blood work or whatever it was, or pee or whatever. And so
Just
afterwards you get
the
the
doctor's hands.
Exactly. She's like, just catches it. Yeah.
She's like, you've been taking vitamin B, haven't you?
So the results come back and she told me she's like, oh, you're all good. I'm like, okay, cool. Can I see it? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, can I have the results so I can check it out?
Why would you want to?
Exactly. She was like, okay, I guess I could. Yeah, I guess I'll print it off for you. I'm like
she couldn't even fathom that.
Was
you
that
would
really a
actually
weird
look at it?
Right. Exactly. I'm like, I want to see my vitamin levels, And then
that just shows you what that doctor is used to.
Right. Exactly. It's just a yes or a no, an on or off. Like,
you're the expert. Do I need to do anything? No. Okay, cool.
Right. And so I get the papers and I'm looking at them. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I'm looking up the words and stuff like that. And she was just typing up notes in the meantime. And she's like, okay, so you have any questions on that? I'm like, okay, so what is, why would it say that? Like, why would it say because it's less than this, then therefore you're good. And what constitutes like the rise in that level and all that stuff. And she's like, oh, I'm not sure. Like after 2 or 3 of those, she's like, she says, you're asking a lot of why questions. I don't know the why questions. And within myself, I was like, oh, right. That makes sense. That makes sense considering everything that I've been looking at and studying. I'm like, yeah, why would you understand this? You're not paid to understand this. But people think doctors get paid to like understand the medical and the human anatomy and its functions and disorder within it, or actually understand disease. They actually don't get paid for that. In the same way that people think that news gets paid to report the truth. It's like, no, they get paid specifically when you click on a headline that you go to their page and then you click on ads or you see ads. What would get you to click on the headline? That's what the news outlets get paid for. They get paid when they generate interest or emotion within you, because that leads you to going to the site, paying to read their stuff or whatever the case may be. So if you really think about it, it's like, oh, like I can't believe this news source is so faulty and all this stuff. It's like, or right, that's not what news is for. And the same thing for doctors. It's like, man, I can't believe those doctors would say the wrong things or they would fudge the number or whatever. It's like the doctors aren't doing that. They're just doing what they're told. And it's not like a shot to doctors because you go to any field, it doesn't matter.
Right. You're not talking shit about them in particular. It's everything.
Exactly. Like people be like, oh, so you're saying we don't need doctors? It's like, no. It's like they serve a great purpose, very specific purpose. But when we're giving them more responsibility within ourselves about they have the answers to health and all this stuff, it's like, that's where we're faltering.
Okay, but doesn't every person know, yes, the average doctor, they're just doing what they were taught. Like they don't actually like understand much of the details about anything. Everyone should be able to see that. Any more than when you go to the bank and you talk to the person at the bank, they know anything about finance.
Right.
You're asking them all these questions. Which thing should I invest in? Do you think they're going to be like, well, let me explain to you how everything works. Like they're not rich. You ever been to a doctor that's not totally healthy?
Right.
Like if they're not in perfect specimen condition of health, then why would you even listen to a word they said? Does any doctor ever die of cancer?
Yeah.
Oh, not bad.
You know, I heard this study. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was significant. It was like they did some survey of doctors and they were like, if you got cancer, would you take the normal
like chemo,
cancer treatment and so forth? And this is based on what it was like cancer doctors. And so that's based on what they've seen the results are and like the suffering that people go through on these drugs and everything. And it was some very large percentage, like over 50%, like 60, 70 something. I have to look it up. Was like, I wouldn't. But then when they looked at the doctors who actually got cancer, it was like overwhelmingly they did.
Oh.
So the thing I was reading about it, they were saying that I don't know if this is a theory or how they figured this out, but it makes sense to me. Is like because they saw all the suffering that people go through and like obviously low survival rates of all this stuff, like in cancer, they like were like, well, I wouldn't want to do that. But then when they actually got cancer, they like didn't see any alternative because they don't know. And then if you really think about it, it's like anything else. Cancer's also, is it something that if you went to the average doctor and said, I really think that there's a big major element to cancer that is coming from within the person, like it's within you in some way. Doesn't mean there's no environmental factors at all, but it's a large component. It's like your body's doing it to yourself. Like there's something within you internally that you need to change. There's a psychological component to it. There's a nutritional component. There's all these other components. Not just I was walking down the street and someone coughed on me and I got cancer, or I smoked some cigarettes and then I got cancer. Mm-hmm. There's other factors that go into it beyond that, right?
Right.
I think to a certain degree, they'll say, yeah, there's lots of factors. But if you said, well, I think also just like your general stress levels, like our society is very taught. Like if you start going into there's an internal cause that we could change that would then reduce it, they would say no. It's something that happens to you. You have to take something outside of you to stop it. And the fact that we're really terrible at curing people, it's not our fault because it's just this foreign invader. It's a like enemy army that's it's so much more powerful than us, and we're just the heroes trying to fight them back. They don't want to. There's no recognition of no, it's internal. Same thing with the virus. They don't want to. No one wants to even talk about if you if you commit suicide, whose fault is that?
COVID-19.
Well, I know you're being funny, but seriously though,
It's your own.
like you chose to do that.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Even if your situation is dire, it's how does it a solution? Right? But it's like we look at it like they're a victim.
Right.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like when someone commits suicide, we think of it like they're a victim.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's terrible that happened to them. It's like they fucking killed. How is it any different than they murdered somebody? Okay. How is cancer any different? How is getting any disease any different?
Hold up.
Like we're instead, it's like, oh, you got this disease, you're a victim. Everything that is based on experts in our system is always putting you as the victim of something. Remember in Your Wish Is Your Command when KT says like all the media and everything is always trying to make you feel like a victim.
Wow. That's
see
such
what
a
I mean?
good point. Yeah.
But that's how people think about it. And so the masks, for example,
To make you
why
feel
is it that healthy people need to wear it? Like you're saying, it makes you feel like a victim. Don't you just feel like it? Like I don't wear it, but I'm saying if you did, like you would feel like I'm a victim because I'm suffering too. Isn't that the perfect society to just be controlled? I mean, I know you, Drake, you read 1984, but it's like, that's such a great book because it really gets you in the mindset of what it would be like to be in that society. And now we're all living in it.
Yeah. And,
You know?
I think the scariest part of that book to me was the fact that they could just willy-nilly erase facts, erase events, rewrite them how they wanted. And that's really what we're seeing happening before us, is that people are not able to even hold on to information long enough to like that's the part that's scary to me, is that a fact or a statistic will change and nobody will notice. And it's just like, damn, we are living in that time. Like it's so easy now. Like once that happens to the masses where people aren't even paying attention anymore, then it's really easy to manipulate them.
Do you remember how in like March or April or whatever, that whole thing with Fauci on 60 Minutes where he was like, you don't need anybody who needs to be wearing a mask, doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And then apparently just recently he reiterated the point of, we were saying that because we didn't want to overwhelm the supply of PPE to like the hospitals and the frontline workers and all this shit, right?
Right.
Which doesn't make sense, because wouldn't it be more important for people not in the hospital to have the PPE? Like if you're in the hospital and people are coming in, they're dying of COVID. Yeah, you need to be there to help them. I get that. So you need to not get COVID and stuff. And assuming, let's just play their game. Play the game for a second, right? You need to not get this disease and spread it and everything. But if you're saying those people are more important, where are the people who are coming into the hospital coming from?
Yeah.
They're coming from the outside, so they're bringing it in there. So why would it be more important for the people here to have it?
Yeah. Especially if
they shut down the fucking hospital so you can only see COVID patients anyways.
Yeah.
So everyone in there already has it. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, okay, you want the doctors to like, not get it because then they can't help people. I understand that argument. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't make sense. But how does it make sense that you should tell everybody else in the fucking outside to not wear masks just so they can have them?
Yeah.
Where are the patients coming from? Is it coming from the doctors treating the patients? And if they get it, they're spreading it to everybody else? Or is it from everybody else on the fucking outside spreading it, apparently?
Right.
So why would it make, even if you literally were like, even if it was true what they were saying, that's why they did it. Why does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Because more people would be going into the hospitals if nobody was wearing.
Why wouldn't
masks.
they just say, look, we don't have enough. Everybody needs to fucking wear what they can and wear the fucking this and all that stuff, just like they ended up doing anyways.
Right.
So they're admitting they already knew there was a supply problem, apparently. I'm not saying there actually was, right? But this is the story. But here's the bigger point, because I don't believe any of that. It's just a story. But what they are saying, the truth of it is, they're saying we're willing to lie to you if we feel it's justified.
Yes.
So now let's say he's still lying. They're all still lying. And they're
Right.
lying because we need everyone to stay locked down because we have to change the economy because it's not supporting people. And there's also too much fucking climate change bullshit going on. We need to like shut down all these other businesses and only the ones that can have the right regulations. And it's just, we're doing it for everybody's best interest.
Yeah.
But ultimately we just did the pandemic thing because we wanted to be able to support everybody to move into the Great Reset. If they're willing to lie in this case, which it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he also still be lying in a much bigger sense?
Yeah.
And how do people not, but because we have this belief of trust the expert. But if it's about trusting the experts, then can there possibly be a doctor who disagrees?
No, there's only one high council expert that we can trust.
It's like you always have to go to some level, but then the question is who determines, like, okay, it's the World Trade, it's the, what's it called? Not the World Trade.
World Health
WHO.
Organization? Yeah. World
Why are they the expert?
Because didn't the CDC oppose the lockdowns? Like one of the health members from the CDC opposed the lockdowns?
No,
A lot of times you see these-
WHO is opposing
Or
it
is it
right now.
WHO?
Well, yeah, but a lot of times you see these headlines and they're headlines.
Yeah.
The WHO doesn't actually oppose headlines.
Oppose
Lockdowns. It
lockdowns.
was like somebody as like a assembly person to a country said it. So then the headline is the WHO, right?
Okay. I didn't look.
Regardless, right? Because first of all, the WHO would never oppose it. Why would they? Right.
Doesn't serve them.
Just like, I was talking to you yesterday, Drake, and we were talking about, you were giving this point about like the World Trade Organization or something like that. The World Bank going into these places and getting these things done.
Yeah.
But really they're doing it so they can get more control.
Yeah. Like it was so obvious to me, man. It's cool because I was reading that in a place where you wouldn't expect, like I wasn't going and looking for how the world is being controlled. It was in a kid's textbook.
Yeah.
Not a kid. But
it's like explaining what was the basic point though? The World Bank was going into these places.
It was going and funding monoculture farms. And the reasoning that they're giving for funding monoculture farms is because the world is expanding and more people need whatever kind of food, and we can get this out to more people and it'll be cheaper, right? But what it ends up actually doing is removing subsistence farming, meaning subsistence farming. So, okay.
Oh, okay. So like a farm where it's like you grow lots of different things and you're supporting yourself and other people in your community.
Exactly.
Versus stop doing that. Let's just grow fucking soybeans.
One cash crop. Exactly. One cash crop, huge farm. And then now you can't even like live because if you wanted to sell or do anything, I'm fucking out competing you out the water. I'm taking all the resources. You can't even buy them because I get them all. And so now your farm is slowly dying and you have to come work on my farm.
I mean, that's basically the Walmart model.
It is the Walmart model. And that's what they did. They funded this in countries throughout the world that they have it's a fucking bank. Like
that's what we were reading in this book about how they're saying the land ownership has become like in the hands of it was something like, it was like 100 people, 100 private landowners own like the equivalent size of all of New England in the United States. This is just in the United States. People, US private landowners own that equivalent, 100 people or 100 private. Yeah. That could be entities, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing. It's like they're going and they're doing these incentives so that they can then take them up with those restrictions on it.
Yeah.
Right. And So I look at the World Bank, it's like the same as the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
They're going in, they're putting incentives in place that if you go along with putting these restrictions in place and so forth, you'll get so much funding and so forth.
Yeah.
So think about it. Bill Gates wants to get everybody to get these vaccines and do all the stuff he wants to do, right? So he goes over here to the WHO. He's the largest. Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation is the largest donor next to the United States, bigger than any other country.
Yeah.
You can look it up on their website.
Yeah.
For WHO?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, US is gone now though, right?
When the US pulled out, Bill Gates now becomes number one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he says, go over here and go to all these countries and tell them they need to lock down and do all this stuff. So you're basically terrorizing people. So they'll be like, just give us the fucking vaccine so we can open back up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, does anyone ever do anything like that on a smaller scale? Like, hasn't there ever been, like, when you were in school, some kid who like schemed and like did something to like get your friend not to like you anymore?
If you look at, like, a lot of people like to make the analogy that the government is like the mafia, right? But it's because you can see really clearly what's going on with the mafia, right? You can see, like, when you're extorting someone,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's really obvious. It's just like, yo, you got to pay up. Otherwise, these guys come in and they fuck your shit up, right?
Yeah.
And so they say the government is the same thing. And why wouldn't it be the same the higher and higher up you go? It's like, oh, all of a sudden you become more and more benevolent.
Right.
Remember,
Like,
you
are
know,
the
like,
people who have the most money in this world the best people? Like, they're the most generous, the most giving, the most caring people. Do people actually believe that?
yeah,
And it's so fascinating because the people who could say something, the people who, because if you're fucking poor and you're working 3 jobs at Walmart and, you know, like fucking grocery stores or whatever all day, you're not going to be able to do anything. You don't have any time or voice or anything, right? But the people who could say something are not willing to because they actually believe. It's like, okay, if you think about these academics, right? Who would the academics blame for all the problems in our society?
Billionaires.
the elite. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
The
then if we
1%.
say, well, who is it that really wants to help everybody change, you know, help in the pandemics and all this stuff? It's the same fucking people.
Yeah.
I mean, the elite, the academic elites are literally saying capitalism, white supremacy, you know, all this stuff. I mean, we've been talking about that several months ago. Isn't it funny? Like, no one's talking about that anymore. Barely. Now that the election's over, like, no one gives a shit about. I'm not saying it's gone. It'll
Yeah.
come back at some point, but they have to
There's
wait
a
till
clear spike in the usage of those words.
They have to wait till Trump gets back in office.
yeah, exactly. January 6th or whatever.
Like, we
Yeah.
thought we were past this white supremacy
Yeah.
government and society, but little do we know we can't trust anybody around us because they voted this monster into office.
The white privilege, the racism thing and all that's interesting because
Joe Biden's
it's-
fucking white.
well, yeah, that too. It makes zero sense. Like, all these old white men just need to go away. And it's like, let's vote an old white man in for president and he'll change everything. I'm like, are you fucking that dumb? You don't want to vote for the old white racist guy because you want the old white racist guy to save everybody. It's like, makes zero sense. It's just he wears the mask.
That's pretty dope.
It's not about being white or
You know
not
what,
white or
Cameron,
anything.
when I was a child, I wanted to see somebody like myself as as president or prime
Mhm.
minister.
Mhm.
So when I see somebody acquiescing, it's pretty dope.
When I see a bitch in the White House, I'm like,
That makes me feel like I could do it too.
I could do it too.
Yeah. You know, now that I see someone wearing a mask in the White House, I knew like I could be wearing a mask.
I'm going to tell my children that. Look, there's someone just like you, a little bitch.
It's like I saw this article. I don't know if I shared it with you guys. It was like this small town in Nebraska or something or wherever, Nevada, and it was like this school it was like the 5th grade student body election, and it was this little girl, and she's like the first like she was running for some kind of thing in their school government, right? And she's like, I'm going to be the first openly lesbian president of the United States. And she's 11 years old. And it's like, why? Why does it matter? Because that then will every other little lesbian 11-year-old girl will know that someday they too can go and be president. And we've talked about this before. It's like, do you know how many presidents there will ever be in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Not more than 20 or whatever it is, like 20 times 4 at the most. You know what I'm saying? It's not that many. So why is that such a fucking thing? Like, you have to be able to see it. But then it's like, well, how was it possible for them?
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows you, like, it's all a distraction, because while everyone's arguing about that kind of shit or white supremacy or this or that or whatever, who's actually determining what happens in this world? It's the people with money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're black or white. Michael Jackson was right. It doesn't matter. Right? He proved it.
Yeah.
He became white and they still fucking killed him. There's nothing he could do.
He's like, white privilege isn't real.
And he wore a mask all the time too.
And
He was like
gloves.
so fucking ahead of his time. And yet still. And it was an expert that killed him. Remember, it's this doctor or something, right?
Yeah, his personal doctor.
Right? So, I mean, you can't trust the experts. Doesn't matter if you're black or white. Wearing a mask won't save you.
And dancing's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, just dance. Yeah, it's fascinating. Go ahead.
You know, when you don't know what you're gonna say, but you already opened your mouth.
Like right now.
So, Cameron, you were making a good point of, well, if we put things into perspective, where jobs are going. And you were making a good point about when we're referring to when we're all together in Texas, of like, what other group is getting together, plotting, literally mapping out how they're going to change the world, other than the people who already are doing so.
Doing it, yeah.
Right. There is nobody else who is or even can take responsibility for it, because within every other individual, whether you look at the brokest person or the most wealthy person, right? It's like Bill Gates, the reason why he's doing all of this is because he thinks the human being cannot change.
Mm.
Just
So it's not even a part of his plan at all. It's like help people change themselves. It's more like, let's just control everything so people don't fucking break everything.
Exactly. Right. And if you're judging that, it's like, that's exactly the parent that you're going to be if you don't change. You're just going to be like, oh, I just
That's a good point.
can't get my kid to sit still. Like, I just want them to like chill the fuck out. Right. You just yell at them or hit them or take things away from them until they do what you say.
That's such a good point. And did y'all see this thing with Fauci and talking about Santa Claus?
Nuh-uh.
Where he was like, he was on CNN and he was like, he said he went to the North Pole and gave the vaccine to Santa Claus so that Santa Claus could still deliver all the presents and everything.
I think he's lying.
And I could be wrong, but I think it was a part of like the CNN Sesame Street collaboration thing. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but they have this collaboration with CNN and Sesame Street where it's like, yeah, you can look it up. It's like the whole thing.
Damn.
And I went on it one time and they're talking about fucking Black Lives Matter, LGBT. It's insane, man. It's like they're taking CNN and Sesame Street and just like, but he was saying that. And then I saw something recently, Gavin Newsom in California was saying,
your boy for short.
He was saying that they gave like Santa a special permit or something to be able to come into LA or something like that. You know,
fucking God.
It was something like along those lines. And then I remember seeing one other thing about it too. But the thing about Fauci was so interesting because I'm like, okay, just play with me here for a second. Okay. Is Santa Claus real, guys?
No,
he's not real. Okay. And I'm just anybody else. I'm talking to you.
Yeah,
Is Santa
guys,
Claus
we
real?
told you this podcast was going to be red pilling you 100%. So
So is Dr. Fauci, when he's saying that, straight up fucking lying into the face of children?
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, guys, there's no Santa Claus. In order to get them to comply, he's lying and saying, I want you to do something. I'm not going to explain to you and tell you the truth or anything. I'm going to straight up fucking lie to you and participate in your illusions of something you believe is real that's not, and straight up fucking to your face lie. What happens when those kids grow up and or they next year and they find out Santa Claus isn't real? They're going to be like, why did this Dr. Fauci fucking lie to me? Like, just that's a side point.
Yeah.
So when he's talking about all this shit to adults straight in the face, like you need to do this and this, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
I see it like you fucking believe in Santa Claus. And he's straight up fucking lying to your face because he's taking advantage of the fact that you're fucking dumb. Because that's like if you came and said that to my son Max and was like, hey Max, I didn't eat all your cookies, Santa Claus ate your cookies, he'd be like, but you really ate them. Did you eat them or somebody who ate them? And he'd be like, Santa Claus ate them, huh? He'd be like, Santa Claus isn't real. Like, are you joking around? Like, who ate? What do you think? Somebody else ate them? Like, he, you know what I mean? He would know you're not telling the truth because he knows Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah.
So, but imagine he does think he's real. All I'd have to do is go, hey Max, you can't do that right now because Santa Claus, da da da. That's what parents do.
Yeah.
They go, Santa Claus is not going to bring your presents. You better get back in bed.
then
Like with me,
why their kids grow up to be assholes. My mom was
right,
wondering
and
why I grew up to be an asshole.
it's like with Max. Sometimes he'll be like, you know, I really we'll be like, it's almost about to fall asleep, right? And he'll be like, Cam, I'm really hungry. And I'm like, well, we ate dinner, right? You had lunch, you had enough food. He's like, no, I'm really hungry. I want to go downstairs. And I'm like, well, are you saying that just because you want to go downstairs, or are you actually hungry? And he'll be like, well, I'm actually hungry. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just lay back down and just relax. Like, you know, it's okay to be a little bit hungry. I mean, I know you're not starving. And then maybe a few minutes later, he'll be like, Cam, I'm actually really hungry. I'm like, okay, well, it's just that it's already late. We're in bed. We're about to fall asleep. You can have breakfast in the morning. You know, I'll explain, like, but it's, you know, it's time for us to be in bed. And if he's persistent, he's like, I'm actually really hungry. I just need some food. I'm like, you know what? Okay, let's go downstairs. It may take an extra 35, 45 minutes, an hour of my time because he wakes back up and everything. What's the big deal? You know what I mean? And sometimes I say that and he's like, yeah, okay. And then it's like, he's fine with it. And he falls asleep because you know what I mean? He's not starving. Right. But my point is, I don't go, well, Max, you know, if we try to go downstairs, you know, the alligators, they come out at night and they're going to get you if you try to go down. You know, I'm saying some shit that parents would say.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, why lie? That only makes you stupid. So if the authority in your life fucking straight up fucking lied to your face, like you can't even process information anymore. It totally breaks like your ability to trust your own common sense. Because you're like, well, I was lied to about this. How do I know? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so most people in this world, they know Santa Claus isn't real, but they still trust the authority.
If you go to Maylat was showing me this thing, I didn't even know it was a thing. But NORAD, right? They have a Santa tracker. And I was like, what do you mean a Santa tracker? They're like, yeah, NORAD has a Santa tracker. And I was like,
NORAD is the North. What is it? Do you know what it stands for? North.
The acronym isn't perfect, but I'll just find it.
It's NORAD.
It's just not rad, bro.
It's not rad, bro.
It's like NOR, North American Defense or something like that.
Okay, yeah, but it's
North
like
American-
basically
North
our
American
sort of.
It's North American Aerospace Defense Command, and they were
It's
like,
like our controlling our airspace in North America,
right, exactly,
tracking everything, radar, all that shit.
So you have NORADSanta.org, and it tracks Santa Claus. It tells you where he is in the world, and I'm like, whoa! So we have this fake thing that everyone is like supporting to make up this entire universe world around this point. It's like you go to their NORAD.
Dude, okay, hold on 1 second. Just real quick. I just realized something. Let's say you're a 6-year-old kid and your friend is like, dude, Santa Claus isn't real. And you're like, dude, you can track him on NORAD. And do you really think, hold on. Think of how many parents there are. Do you really think that they're all just getting together and they're just lying to all of us and they like, give me a break? Like, do you really think so? Now, let me ask you a question. That sounds silly, right? Is that not actually what happens?
No, that's so genius, man.
And you want to tell me that it's not possible for anyone else to do that. Yeah. It's like, it's happening right in your fucking face and it's destroying children's innocence right there.
Do you know how many people would have to get together to lie about this and hold a straight face? Come on.
Now, let me ask you a question. Okay, but let's look at it for a second. Is that actually what happens? They all get together and lie about it?
No, they don't.
Why do parents do it?
Because that's what they were taught.
They were taught that, and then they justify it, don't they?
Yeah.
So they don't have to get together. It just has to be done to them. And at a certain point, they don't even question it. They're just like, well, if you ask them, like, why don't you just not tell your kids about Santa? Or, in other words, why don't you tell them the truth about it? They'll be like, what? And take away the magic of childhood? What?
Right.
Like, what magic of childhood are you taking away by telling them the truth about something that's not real?
So
like literally when they go and watch a Disney movie, you're like, guys, hold on. I'm going to pause real quick. Okay. We're watching Frozen. What's a Disney movie? The panda one,
Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that
okay. Real quick. I'm just going to pause. Kids, anybody here not think this is real? Okay. You don't think it's real? You don't think that panda is fucking really talking? That's a real talking panda. Okay. I don't want to hear any more bullshit. You don't think it's real. Okay. Like, otherwise you're destroying the magic of childhood, right? Like, they need to believe that that's a real talking panda. Otherwise they can't have any magic experience towards that movie. Like when your kids are watching Harry Potter, are you like, guys, wait, you guys realize this is real, right? The wands and everything, they're really doing that. This isn't CGI. Okay. And then you're like, if you don't tell them that, they're not going to be like, oh, this movie sucks. Like, that's not real. What the fuck? Right. Like, can you just pretend in Santa? And it's funny because we told our kids about Santa. We explained to them what it was. They don't care. And it's funny because we'll walk down the street and Seneca, when the decorations out, she's like, Santa Claus. It's a Santa Claus. And then they'll be like, it's a snowman. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, let's go see the Santa Claus. We go over there. Cool. But they know it's not real. Do you see what I'm saying? Why does it need to be the extra part where you make them believe it's real?
Right.
Why? Yeah. Why does that make it more magical?
Yeah.
You could still pretend. It's like when you watch movies, you know it's not real. That doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the movie, does it?
Dude.
That doesn't destroy the magic? What?
I just read this book by James True. And
yeah.
He talks about like the magician, right? And the magician makes you believe that there's a quarter behind your ear, right? But the magician knows there's no quarter. And the whole thing, the magician is just pretending. But the magic happens when you deceive yourself and believe it.
That's the magic.
That's the magic.
The magic is their ability to deceive you.
Yes.
Not your experience.
No.
It's the same thing with love. What is actual love? It's like actually taking care of something, doing what's best, right? But we think the love is that feeling you have inside. So when they're saying the magic of childhood, like believing in Santa, the magic is actually them getting you to believe something. It's like, dude, wait, hold on a second. I can just say Santa's watching you guys and I'll say Santa's watching my kids and they'll behave. Fucking magic words.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, why are you don't want to go to bed? Oh, well, I'll just go tell Santa. Oh, no, I'll do it. Okay, good. Okay, I won't tell Santa. That's the magic.
Yeah.
So when they're saying you want to take away the magic of childhood, it's like, you mean your ability to fucking put spells on your kids and control them and deceive them.
Yeah.
But then what happens when they realize you were fucking lying?
Yeah. And
it's almost like, one more thing. It's almost like, because I was making this point earlier about how once you're traumatized, it's like you can't understand the authority. People might think, Well, once you realize that authority lied to you, why would you then believe authority again? You see what I'm trying to say? But it's like once you've been hurt like that, you didn't get any smarter from it.
Yeah.
You didn't understand. Just realizing you were lied to doesn't mean you understand how things work now. In fact, you spent this whole time participating in an illusion. That energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So you immediately have to shift it from, because like it's like a thing has been installed in your consciousness that's like the thing you believe in. Once you disconnect, it's like you still have to find that somewhere. You see what I'm saying? So now it has to be the system, the experts. So literally people, it's like we don't have God to believe in. A lot of people are falling away from religion. They don't have that. The kids don't have Santa. So it's like you don't have Santa, so you're believing in something else. They don't have that. So they're just trying to find something to believe in. That's all it is. You see, they're transferring this. It's like, I need to trust something. But then all common sense goes out of the window. Like the basic common sense of how does Santa get down the chimney in an apartment complex? How does he get into your house if you live in an apartment and there's only one door that goes into your house? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But you just get rid of all that and you're just like, well, it doesn't matter. I believe. It's my faith. It's my belief that matters.
And that's the terminology. That's the terminology that he used in this book. He says you get them to believe something that they know is impossible.
Right.
Oh, kill 'em. You know, the magicians are getting together and being like, dude, that was sick. You got them really good. And then, you know, their parents are getting together. He's like, yeah, I just tell my kid that Santa Claus is going to take it away if they play video games too long. They're like, that's pretty sick. I'm going to use that one on my kids.
Yeah.
See,
but
yeah.
Also like with the magician, just to hit home that point again, is that knowing that it is that you are pretending, why would you do that? Like you know that's not real. You're pretending, but it's literally getting the energy from them. You're getting energy from them. That's what it makes it worthwhile for the magician himself.
And that's what the parent's doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the child experiencing any more or less magic by believing that it's real. You're getting some kind of feeling from it.
Yeah.
It's like, why do people take their kids to Disney World?
So you can see the look on their faces.
Right. But it's not real. Like we didn't do any of that with our kids.
Stuff.
Right. We don't do that with our kids. So we don't go, well, I have to get off on like my kid seeing Mickey Mouse. The only reason why Mickey Mouse is valuable is because you've been fucking impulsing them with it. It's like, see what I'm saying? It's like you've been making it seem important. And then you get so much joy out of them seeing the thing in real life. But it's like, they don't realize it's not real. You're taking advantage, you're like sucking their innocence to get an experience within yourself. So we just don't do that.
If you go on, so let me just fact check you real quick. Kung Fu Panda is a DreamWorks animation.
That's the movie, which is a cool movie, I think. By the way,
DreamWorks, not Disney. But yeah, it's a cool movie. If you go to Google, if you just type in Santa,
hold on. What's it called?
Google?
No, DreamWorks, right?
DreamWorks, yeah.
Well, that should tell you right there.
Yeah. If you go to Google and you type in Santa Tracker, there's a santatracker.google.com. So a Google Santa Tracker. If you click on that, the loading screen for it is Mr. and Mrs. Claus with a mask on.
Oh, I'm doing it right now.
If you click on it, you might have to navigate to a page. Oh, no. Right away. You'll see like a little loading screen. And anytime you click on something that loads.
Oh, SantaTracker.google?
Exactly. SantaTracker.google.
Oh, wow.
It's just like Mr. and Mrs. Claus waving at you. If you click on the menu thing in the top left.
Oh, all the fucking elves.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. They made
now,
it
do you
look.
See it?
Can you see that they all have this same big smile?
No,
but it's not necessarily a mask. It just looks like that. Like it just, you know, that psychological effect that it's going to have on children of taking away. That,
oh, no, wait. They are smiles. Yeah. Because I'm seeing one guy has his mouth closed.
But look at how weird.
But it looks like masks.
Exactly. Right.
But they're like huge smiles. Like they're like way big.
So you know that that psychological effect that's talked about in the book On Killing, about what wearing masks does to human beings, about the way they perceive each other. It's like they're now impulsing that with every image in this Santa Claus thing. Because it's so weird how they all have the exact same weird looking smile.
Yeah.
But if you look at even in the bottom right, if you click on the menu in the top left, in the bottom right, it's just Santa with a mask across his whole face.
Hold on. I didn't see that one. Which on the bottom on the map?
So once you load it,
We're just not sharing the screen for anybody watching because it takes so much fucking time to convert the video otherwise. But
Yeah.
so where does it say it on the Family Guide?
so no, not on the Family Guide, but so once you load the page,
Uh-huh.
in the top left, there's like a menu button, like the 3
Uh-huh.
horizontal lines.
Okay.
You click on that, it shows every like tile.
Yeah.
Scroll back all the way to the bottom, in the bottom right.
Oh yeah. Okay. It's like an icon sort of. and then
Explain to
the
me
footer.
why that picture's there. You know what I mean? Like, it
why
doesn't
is he
serve
wearing
any
a mask?
purpose.
Right.
It's crazy. It's really crazy.
This is so fucking weird, man.
So then people will say it's like, yeah, prove that they're targeting children. Prove that they're going after children in schools and all that stuff. I was talking to this girl, brilliant kid. She's like 14, 15, but she's saying how in high school, and this is here in Canada, right? I always want to think that it doesn't happen around here, right? But she's in Mississauga, so around Toronto, a big city. And she's saying in high school how it's such bullshit. She's like, I don't even feel like I'm allowed to take my water bottle to school because people give me dirty looks when I pull up my mask for my water bottle. And it's all like all the specific ideologies being propagated. I think that point that you made, that's just so funny. Oh, well, it's made all over of like, they think they're the rebels, the ones who have the most popular opinion in the world right now.
Like every corporation, every government, every
Yeah.
entity, you name it, like agrees with you.
It's like, yeah, we know it's radical. We know it's crazy. It's like they're getting that feeling of specialness, but it's the point to really look at is the direction of where things are going. But we talk a lot about, because it's a good way to understand things, talking about it in a more general sense or a formulaic sense or from a sense of principle, because then you'll be able to understand things. But to make it really relevant to us as individuals, if we look at the practicality, like what's environmentally going to change around us moving forward, that would be a good thing to discuss, because I don't think, okay, so there's a lot of people who are just still trying to do their thing. You know what I'm talking about? When I say they're just trying to do their thing, they're not realizing how this is going to impede that and suck all the life out of whatever, if you're trying to do your own thing.
Yeah.
You're making a good
understanding the point of being in a group.
Right, exactly. You're making a good point about how the traditional ways of making money. I mean, all my friends who aren't doing like the couple of friends that I have or old acquaintances that I have who wanted to like be entrepreneurial, they wanted to start restaurants and they all failed because they tried to do it in the last year or so. And even apart from that, it's like 95% of businesses fail anyways in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
It's already impossible to have a successful restaurant.
Exactly.
Now it's like literally impossible.
Definitely. Yeah. And so go ahead, Jake.
Let me ask you, like, do you think the vast majority of people who are just doing their own thing, do you think they like their lives?
It's a really good point. And those of you who are listening to this, who are doing your own thing, like really consider, Cameron always makes this point. If you're not going to take responsibility for it, then don't complain. Don't point out anything that you don't like. Don't complain about the masks. Don't complain about, I can't believe they might force the vaccine, all that stuff. Don't complain about it because you're not willing to take responsibility for it. And I think that's when it started clicking for me how things came to be and how we can change it. That's when I started not being so pessimistic and like, oh my God, like we're definitely 100% fucked and we just have to go along with it. Is when I was like, oh, and it took time. It took a lot of time, but it's through talking to you guys, talking to the distributors who are all focused on that singular point, so that we're all bringing up our objections and then handling that for each other and building that perspective of what it actually takes to change. That's what made me certain that it can change. Now, for everybody else who's at that point of, okay, you probably hear this more often now more than ever. It's like, yeah, I try to stay out of this stuff because you'll have this group of people who are like, it's all fake, or, anti-vax, all that stuff. And then you'll have the other people that's like you have to lock down, you got to take the vaccine, all that stuff. It's like these belief systems that are never going to change. You can't change people's beliefs. But I know that's bullshit. I know it's 100% bullshit, but there's no way that somebody would know that unless they were already had and were using TechnoTutor for a consistent period where what they value shifted, where they actually began to start processing information, where they actually had their perspective on what reality was shift.
Or
And
also this point of
don't experience that, then you're not going to be able to stand certainly to be like, oh, I can actually change as a human being. And you're not going to be understanding how the world can change. And that's what's going to lead you to be depressed and pessimistic. And I don't want to have kids and all that stuff. If you're feeling that way, it's because you're not doing this process, or you're not doing exactly what we were doing. Okay, what were you going to say?
I was going to add to your, things that you're doing that are showing you're changing. Another one is making a decision based on a principle.
Oh shit.
People don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
Isn't that what you would want from your government leaders? Isn't that what you want from the mega billionaire people? It's like, you want them to make the decision of, yeah, I could make more money here, but in principle, it's actually best if I did this instead. Isn't that what you would want?
Yeah.
So within joining this group, you get lots of opportunities to face that point within yourself.
Wow.
Where you make the decision to that doing something based on principle doesn't mean you have to sacrifice. But that's also why you're in a group. The problem is when you're doing things on your own, you feel like I either have to get what's mine or I have to just lose. But when you're in a group with principles, it's like the group supports you. You see what I mean? When you're a part of something, it's kind of like if you go to church and you fall on hard times, the other people can help you up or something like that. It's not the same thing because that's not really still taking self-responsibility. I'm just giving you an example, right? But when you have principles, I mean, I could go into more specifics, but
you just need to be here.
that's what I'm saying. I don't want to go into so many specifics where it's like people wouldn't even be able to relate. You know what I mean? It'd be like specifics you could only relate to if you're literally in self-perfected, TechnoTutor distributor, using TechnoTutor, doing the DIP. There's only so much you're going to be able to relate to from the outside. So really, I guess I'm talking more to people who are actually like in the group already to a certain degree. But it's like you get these points where you can make the decision based on just what's best for me, but it's always an illusion. And it's usually always something that seems temporarily like it's a good idea, but within yourself why you're making the decision. But then other people in the group can help point that out and be like, well, look, here's what would actually be best. Can you see that? And you're like, oh yeah, I see that. Okay, let me do that. And it always works out way better. You see what I mean? And it's like, if you always make decisions like that, then the group just becomes stronger. You trust each other more. You have more fun, everything grows. And when you start making the decisions in the other way of like, well, but I just want to go with what I want or whatever, you start to see those bonds, those relationships start to deteriorate. That's what's happening in our world over thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of years, is always making decisions, not in principle, but on what's like competitive. You see, so even evolution itself takes a competitive angle on things. So it's like survival of the fittest. We say that, but then we don't apply it. Is it about survival of the fittest? Is that what evolution is based on? Because if it is, then who the fuck cares about all these people dying from COVID?
Right.
Let them fucking die. They're weak. I'm not saying we should have a society like that.
Right.
But if you're going to justify things based on competition,
be consistent,
survival of the fittest, like, isn't that how nature would do it? Aren't you interfering with nature? Right. So we shouldn't do that. We should do it based on principle. The problem is because you're not directing things really based on principle, all your guilt that's internalized about not doing that is being used against you now. That's what the white guilt privilege bullshit is about. And that's what the masks and everything is about. You're made to feel that you're a mass murderer if you do not wear a mask. And people have a right to judge you and shame you and belittle you and all that stuff. And you should do it to other people. When in reality, your whole existence is supporting mass murder at all times because you use money. So you see what I mean? Wearing the mask And this is a really great question to start asking people. Let me ask you a question. When you're wearing the mask, do you think that you're doing what's best?
I'm sure they'll say yes.
Right? Do you see what I'm saying? But that can open up a conversation. How are you doing what's best by wearing it? And then look at that and have them look at it. Or another way is reversing the question and saying, are you doing what's best when you're wearing the mask? Just what if I told you that in some of these countries, because you're going along with these restrictions, other countries are being locked down and being put into restrictions, and people are dying because they can't work, like by the millions. Like people are suffering in poverty and so forth. People are dying because they can't go to work, and they don't have the luxury like you do to sit at home, just not work for a couple of weeks or something. So how is that best? Do you see what I mean? You start opening up that conversation again to see like, there's something going on here, right? Because the reality is people are acting like they care when really they're just afraid of being publicly shamed.
And it's so easy to justify, I'm just one person, I won't make a difference. I'm just one person. How would me changing do anything? But if it's one person who's not wearing the mask, it's like they're responsible for all the death in the world, right?
Right. So in the same sense, like you can actually have a huge effect in this world.
Mm.
You by yourself is not going to change anything, but by you standing up and looking and walking and learning and integrating these principles of what's best, which we have listed, like we've talked about on the website, you look at those and you really study them. It's like, because sometimes people have this feeling of, well, if I join a group, I'm going to be like a robot, right? You just want me to program me to never have any free choice or anything. And like what I'm saying is, no, choose freely to do what's best. Yeah. Otherwise, what are you making your choices based on? Well, I want to do it. I'm passionate about. That's not free choice. That's just like your program. I only do things that I'm passionate about.
I think it's hard for people to hear that and actually understand what you're saying. Because I remember I initially had that thought of like, well, will I be able to make my own choices anymore if if I join a group, or if I become super intelligent and I know what's best?
Well, here's an example. It's like, let's say,
no, you know what? You just real quick. You know what? I guarantee you that so many people think that when we were in Houston, all hanging out, that we were just like rubbing each other's circuits together, like just talking business and just being robots. Literally, It's like, oh, they're just principle driven. They don't have any fun. Like happiness is bad. So as soon as you enter that household, it's like no energy. But then you look at the reality of it, and all the videos I have on my phone of us doing like the most random bullshit, like looking for frogs at one moment, and the other night Drake's like being a preacher, asking us all for money, and then what was it? Mayor and David are like, Seneca's like dancing, and then Mayor and David are doing like ballerina.
And then remember when we played that bomb game? What was it called?
Oh yeah.
Keep talking and
nobody explodes. Yeah.
And it was really hard to get Max to sleep at night in Seneca because you guys were downstairs laughing so much.
Right.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, meaning you're having a lot of fun, right? So I'm like, oh, I want to be down there, right?
Yeah.
So no, you have fun. It's just, if you believe life can't be fun unless you're constantly creating consequences that aren't best for everybody, like, how does that make sense?
That's what you're saying.
It's like, I can't do what's best because then I would be a robot and life would be boring. It's like, how is it feeling wearing a mask right now? Like, I'm not a robot. I could do what I want. Let me put my mask on. It's like, you're a fucking robot.
No, but it's a good point. It's like right now, that's what's happening. Even outside, even before the fucking masks. It's like,
well, yeah, but it's like people
don't go to work. I know. They're using that to right. But it's just looking at the bigger picture. It's like, then don't go to work. Oh, but I must. Why?
So you know what? This actually, I'm glad the conversation went here, because this is what I wanted to bring up was, who you really are is what you're doing in your recreational time, right? Like if you look at what you do in your recreational time, the vast majority of people, they're like on YouTube, they're playing video games, they're, I don't know, some people are smoking or drinking or whatever the hell they're doing, right? That's their
Smoking
recreational
Cheetos.
time. Even if it's like something where they're playing tennis or
With the
whatever.
carrot.
The
Smoking
carrot, not a
carrots.
Cheeto.
but what we refer to as recreational time is what you do like for enjoyment, for entertainment, right? But I was looking at the word recreation again. And I really love this word
Yeah.
because it's literally the word recreation. And so that's the time that you could be using to recreate yourself to who you want to be. If you don't if you don't like who you are, right? That's the opportunity. But the thing is, every single time that you have recreational time, and today we have more of it than ever, right? Every single time you are recreating something, but you're making a decision whether you want to recreate yourself to be something better or where you want to go or best, right? Or recreate your memories, recreate who you already are, recreate what you're already doing.
Mhm.
So if you like what you're already doing, that might seem like a good idea to just recreate that. But then, do you have any actual influence? Are you actually living? Are you actually producing something that's best? And if not, and that's all you're doing is just like enjoying your time, you're a fucking robot.
But most of what people are doing as enjoying is just escaping what they were doing most of the time that they didn't enjoy.
That's
So
right.
it doesn't mean it. So you can still have fun and do fun things, but you're going to have to put some time towards doing something that actually will change things and change yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to suddenly make all of your focus that. But initially, especially when you start studying like destiny, like I went all the way in, like that's all I was doing all the time for a long time, for like months, you know. But I'm also that type of person that just likes to go and like research and understand everything. You see what I'm saying? So
We used to call that a Cameron Cope, but now we call that a Mitchell Snyder.
Mitchell, yeah, exactly. Right. But you're right. You do have to dedicate time to it. You have to look at how are you spending your time in a way where all you're doing is delaying the inevitable.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, if you want to live in a world where fucking people are just locked down in their homes and on virtual reality and that's it. I mean, how many people watch The Matrix and go, oh, wow, they're all in that fucking illusion, like fucking idiots. Like they need to wake up and help Neo fight the robots. And then literally in their real life, they're like, man, I can't wait for virtual reality to come out. I just want to sit there and play that all day. I just want to play the next video game. And like, you're literally fucking the person in the Matrix who's asleep. It's like,
Yeah.
you're doing that.
You know, like when you thought you had what you wanted to say.
Again?
I had it because Cameron's such a captivating speaker. So I think of what I want to say. I'm like, let me put that aside. But what it is for a lot of people, see how I figured it out. That's pretty good. Eh? For a lot
So
of
I
people,
just keep talking until I say something
exactly
interesting.
until you like Michael Scott, right? You know, when you start a sentence, but you don't really know where it's going. So you just keep talking until you figure it out or whatever he says. But a lot of people, it's like before you figure this out, things are like something. I'm not casting voodoo on you or spells, but this is just the way it works. The more you deny what is here, it's like if you didn't want to accept how a stove works.
2020
if
is the collective expression of what you're saying about to say right now.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't deny it happens. It's happening right now to everybody.
If you didn't accept how a stove works and you're like, no, what I'm supposed to do is I just keep doing this and then eventually the stove will turn on and I'll be able to heat up my food.
You're
It's
gonna
like
have some cold beans.
you're gonna go really hungry. Really hungry.
And think about this, the reason why we're experiencing this whole 2020 pandemic stuff is not because we don't know how to manage disease. It's because we aren't taking responsibility to stand up and participate in creating a world where we don't need just a few people controlling everything, or where it's not even practically possible for that to happen. The only reason they're able to do that is because so many people are dependent upon them for their basic survival. If everyone had that, You couldn't manipulate anybody any longer based on that.
So this
You'd
is
have to
why,
really say, well, explain why someone should do something, why it's actually in their best interest.
right, exactly. And this is why it's the collective, but it is the individuals, because that's what we're all doing to ourselves. So the point being that the more you're denying what you actually, the way you actually fit into all of this, the way you actually take responsibility for it, things in your life are just going to keep getting worse, whether it be financially, in your relationships, in your health, in your attitude, your mood about life, whatever. It's like, it'll just reach a point where you're like, holy fuck, I need a change. Or you can just look at the common sense of what we're saying and how it relates to what you are doing. If you're just listening to this and you're just seeing yourself as, okay, well, I'm in the self-perfected group, I'm inviting people into the self-perfected group, that's good, right? But it's only good as far as you are actually doing what we're doing. Because if you listen to more than one of these, then clearly there's something in what we're saying that resonates with you. And so for that reason alone, you can't use that idea of, oh, it's so cool that I'm glad I have this podcast to listen to so that, these pieces are being put together, or I'm glad I have this group to participate in so that I excel, or so that I can, meet other people that hold me accountable to my growth. You have to do what we are doing, because there are so many other people in this world that are not getting access because there's not enough people doing this. And so a lot of the time, you're just going to have to go through the consequences of how you've been living your life. And it'll get worse and worse and worse until you wake up to the fact that, oh, I actually do play a role in all of this. I am part of a community that I have influence in if I choose. In the same way that if you go and start fucking shit up, well, your community is going to know about it. It's going to be in the news. It's going to affect the people in your environment. It's going to affect how safe they feel. If you do a particular malicious act to somebody else in your neighborhood, it's going to affect the way people feel safe and how they react to each other in your neighborhood. Well, okay, cool. So you're not doing that. So you're neutral. You're still part of the problem. Only if you're taking proactive measures to support the people in your community to understand what the fuck is going on, to support people in your community to actually be able to process information in the information era. Because right now, if you really think about it, the reason they call it the information era is because you have so many statuses, news articles, tweets, videos just zooming by you all that time that you can't keep up with all of it. So that you just have to grab the first thing that makes sense to you, that fits into your belief system, and then just defend that with your life. And that is why people can't change, because they don't have the time to really take time and consider, first of all, work on their processing ability so that they can put the pieces together, but just they have the time to research basic points, right? That are considered advanced points only because nobody does it. And so it is the coming together of people in their communities that's going to be the only way. And it's going to be the stepping up of the people who are listening to this podcast, the people who are in the self-perfected group, that it's like, you're being called on now. It's your responsibility to step up in your community. And instead of people feeling more and more separated, more and more afraid, more and more detached from the other people around them, it's like, it's your responsibility now to make a lot of money making a difference. Yes, it's a privilege, but it's a responsibility, because if you don't do it, no one in your community is going to do it. And then you can't complain about, oh, this grocery store like won't let me do this because of that reason, or I can't go to this barbershop anymore because of this reason. It's like, it's your fault. It's your fault that you didn't start this sooner. So the point is, if you look at that for yourself, then, and really realize that where we're at now as a society is what Cameron was saying. It's a consequence, not to the decisions you made today. It's a decision that we've all collectively been making for the last year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, for as long as we fucking existed. But the point is, now we're at a point in time because of technological advances that we can actually change all of that, that we can actually fundamentally change the starting point of the human being. And it's very simple, which is good because that means anybody can do it. But if you're not doing this process, then what do you think your next step is? Do the process. Use your techno tutor every day. Do the writing, do the research, talk to other people. If you're already doing the process for yourself, then what do you think the next step is? Sharing this process with others. And because it requires direct support, you deserve to be compensated for that, so that you don't just have to be like all the other fucking people who talk shit because they're going to their 9 to 5 plus an hour of travel time each way, spending that 10 hours a day doing something totally different. And then they're waking people up, I'm doing air quotes, on the side. It's like, what if you can get survival points or money for waking people up for real, where the result is their life, their quality of life increases because they can process information at a faster rate, which results in more emotional stability because you actually understand what's going on in the world. And you can explain that to somebody if they asked. And you can explain that to your children, right? And explain that to your friends. That's what we're here to do. And so the point is, if you're not doing that yet, then you shouldn't be getting any good feelings about being noble or being part of or being part of anything, because you're not part of anything. That's just you in your own world justifying why you get to do your same job. Oh, but I'm not good at communicating really well and all this stuff. Bullshit. It's like, honestly speaking, neither was I. I thought I was because I had all this experience. But as soon as you start taking full responsibility, okay, I'll give you an example. If you were to take full responsibility for your food right now, you would realize how retarded you are, or how inadequate you are at being able to produce food for yourself. If you really just think about how much we take for granted, being able to just go to the grocery store and get food for ourselves, versus if we had to take full responsibility for that. In the same way that if you had to take full responsibility for really communicating an idea to someone to the degree where they actually take action on it, then you'll realize how poor your communication always has been. Not just right now, always has been. That's the reason you have problems in your life. The only way you're going to realize that is if you do what we're doing. Because this is the only way where being a good person equals doing something real in this world. And every other aspect of being a good person, it's total bullshit. Why? How do we know that? Because most people feel like a good person, and the world is worse now more than ever. Explain that one, right? So the point is, if you're hearing these words, they should result in you doing something different. If you're not doing what we're doing, then that tells me that you don't have the processing ability to understand why what we're doing is so fundamental. You don't understand how the world works. You don't understand how the human being works. And here's the funniest thing. So Maylat, she's been watching a lot of Pierce Morgan. It's so funny. She's going on like Pierce Morgan YouTube binges, not binges, but when she's like folding laundry or doing something cool, she'll just like have that playing. She baked some banana bread today, so I'm happy. So she's watching Pierce Morgan, right? And you have these people in the school system who are influencing the school system and saying what should be in there and what shouldn't be in there. And it's so clear that They said, this is what one of them said. They said, one of the people that came onto the show, the breakfast television or whatever it's called, Pierce Morgan and another,
Is that what the name of the show is? Breakfast Television?
something like that. I don't remember.
That's actually a really cool name for a show.
Why.
I don't know. It just sounds cool to me. Breakfast Television.
Sure, you have to watch this with your television. With your breakfast. My apologies.
Watch it with your television.
You can't watch it on your phone. But so it's Pierce Morgan and this other lady who stays very neutral. Who's like, no, like Pierce, be nice kind of thing. But Pierce is like a fucking savage. But he's obviously he's doing it for TV, right? But it's like he's clear about what he's doing, right? It's pretty cool. But the point is, somebody was arguing for 100 gender identities. And there was an actual trans person who was like, no, that's bullshit. Like, I had to go through the actual process of physically becoming a transgendered woman. And then you say it doesn't fucking matter. Because you could just identify as a transgender woman, right? And the person was saying, they're trying to defend themselves, not going too well. But they say basically they think it's ridiculous that a child can be convinced of anything other than what they believe themselves to be. And I was like, wait a second. You don't understand how a child believes who they are to be.
Yeah, like why do they believe who they are in the first place?
Exactly. But you have that person
like there's like nothing influences them. They just they completely
they came out, they developed the English language, and then they were like, this is who you know what I mean? Like they learned to walk and boom, here they are. I believe like I am not, whatever gender my body
it'd be like speaking English as your first language and then saying you identify as speaking Chinese, but you're literally just speaking English. It's like, well, but that's not the reality of what it is. Right?
And so,
but isn't this obviously just a point where people feel they don't fit into this world?
Yeah.
They don't fit into the environment they're in. They don't fit into the place in their family. Like that's simply a result of every single thing not being like each person not considering what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if you were from a long time ago, we wouldn't have all these consequences. And the other problem is people expect that if you start considering what's best for everybody now, suddenly everything changes perfectly in the world. No, because there's a lot of consequences that we have to work out. There's a lot of people who are convinced that they are a different gender. So now they feel like things need to change in society so that they can feel comfortable. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, but then also not go, therefore we should keep brainwashing children to think that. You see what I mean? Like we shouldn't make those people feel excluded and do things that are actually harming them. But at the same time, you can't play into the delusion.
Yeah.
I mean, like what if somebody was 50 years old and said, no, I believe Santa is real?
I feel like you're a little bit old for that.
Like, no, he's actually real, and you need to do certain things to make me feel like you accept that I believe he's real and that he is real.
So what
I believe he's real.
People say, well, that's your belief. I have my belief. It's like, as long as your belief isn't harming anybody. But it's like, what if because you didn't say anything when they were young, they dedicated their whole lives to trying to get to the North Pole and find Santa Claus, and because they never found him, they got depressed and killed themselves?
Or they just wasted their whole fucking life.
Right, exactly. But it's like, that's not impactful enough for somebody to be like, yeah, true, because everybody's wasting their life.
Yeah.
When people say you have your belief, I have my belief, let's leave it at that. That's just because they hit the limit where they realize they can't actually they can't really explain with common sense why what they believe is valid. So they're like, well, I'm going to have to concede that you can have your belief and I can have mine.
So that you don't challenge
they always
me.
say, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
It's like, how are you measuring that?
Well, but if I just keep yelling at you and criticizing you that your belief is wrong, that's not hurting you, is it? So why do we have to leave it at that? Why can't I just be like, but then also kind of to your point, do you actually look at your beliefs if they actually hurt anybody? What is the consequence of your belief? Like the belief of, well, everybody has to compete to survive, or, if nobody worked, or if everybody had enough to survive, they'd be lazy and nobody would work. We wouldn't have anything. Like, what about these beliefs? And what if another person's belief was actually in conflict. Like, is science a belief?
Like, what about if you believe that? Okay, no, wait, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you're saying I have to wear a mask.
Uh-huh.
That's a belief that you have, that this virus is going to spread a certain way. It's all belief, meaning no one has actually proven it. It's just belief. It's just people stop at the, oh, well, these are the authorities, so we don't need to check further. We're just going to accept it. It is a belief.
Right.
You do not know. You have not verified it. Right? Have experts been wrong in the past about things?
Yes.
Has the company that is producing the vaccine ever been found or had any liability or any issues for harming anyone else in the past?
Well, they're not allowed to have liability anymore.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Cameron, you'll pull up the numbers, right?
Well, I'm saying, like, they say, well, it's FDA approved. So, you know, that of course, at the FDA, they check it out, right?
Of course.
But the FDA approved Vioxx.
Yeah.
What's Vioxx? What's Vioxx?
Is that heart attack thing. Do you remember? I don't think it's in Your Wish Is Your Command. It's like in one of the gin trainings. Where
It's
it's
in
like,
level
I
1.
was in the room when they were like, oh, fucking let him die.
Yeah.
It's
like this is
referring
gonna
specifically to
kill
that.
people, but we're gonna make billions of dollars. But
Yeah.
it might kill millions of people, or it's gonna kill millions of people.
People are gonna die.
The way
We'll
people are
make
looking at the way
billions
these
of
companies look at it
dollars.
now, they're like, the way people are, they're saying, these people are going to die, but we're going to make billions of dollars. One guy goes, no, hold on. You got it wrong. These people are going to die and we're going to make billions of dollars. It's a win-win. They were like, remember our principles. Number 1, reduce the population. They're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Hey guys, this one is great.
So on that point that you were making about how young people who are realizing, wow, I don't feel right in my body, like maybe I'm of a different gender. It's like, if I could generalize that point, it's within all of us how we all feel like, why the fuck am I not happy?
Right.
What's wrong? But we're saying it's like, yeah, it's because the world that we've created, not the world, not like reality, but the system, the world that we are living in right now, it's because it's fucked. And as soon as you realize that, then it's like, oh, okay.
And imagine
it's all by
thinking,
design.
I'm not happy because I'm the wrong gender. And it's like, these people, they're in the gender, they agree with the gender that they were given. So they're okay. And I'm not happy. So they have this privilege over me.
Right.
And it's like, newsflash, they're not happy either.
Yeah.
There's not a fucking person on this planet who's actually genuinely happy. So stop thinking you're special. And then also, you didn't come up with this idea. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't come up with the idea. Maybe the first person. But then as soon as it's become mainstream, how do you know who's just being impulse to do it?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen little kids like playing like their Power Rangers or Ninja Turtles or whatever?
Yeah.
They didn't come up with that idea.
Right.
Someone gave them that idea. They were impulse with it constantly until they started just living it out, acting it out, playing it out.
Yeah.
It's like Max. He spent the past week at least pretending he's Carmen Sandiego, which is like this video game from like when I was a kid, where it's like you try to solve clues and figure out, you know,
right.
this character. Some of you may know what that is, right?
In the world.
Right in the world's Carmen Sandiego. And so he got this green, almost kind of like military style-ish jacket that Katie has, and like a fishing hat. You know those like
coat,
yeah, that coat. And then you know those fishing hats where it's like
with the brim all the way around it.
And he's put that on,
Yeah.
because it looks like she has the trench coat and like the kind of fedora kind of hat.
That makes so much
So
sense.
he runs around that. He wants to sleep in it. He doesn't want to take it off.
Love it.
But when you guys were here, he wasn't talking about that.
No.
Yeah.
When you guys were here, he was a super solver.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
That's
was like
why
a
I-
different thing that we were playing, right? So it's just whatever it is we're doing at the time, he takes that on and he wants to be it and live it out. And he takes certain elements of it. That's like, you can't avoid that.
That's why when we were on video chat, like me, you, Max, Seneca, Maylat, and Katie, and he was like, we're like doing math or something. And he had asked me a question. And I was like, I don't know, Maylat. I think we need a super solver for that. He was like, wait, did you say super solver?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like, you can't avoid that. You're going to impulse your kids with things. Like you walk outside, it's going to happen, right? You just have to look at it in the context of, okay, am I explaining things clearly? What is this impulsing? How can I make sure they have context so they don't get some weird idea about something and then like develop a complex around it?
No,
But the
no.
reason I brought it up is it's like
Yeah.
kids like to pretend. They take things in, they like to act them out and test them out. Like Seneca, lately she's been putting my, like I have several pairs of boots, but I have this one pair. It's like you guys saw them when you were here. Like they're like kind of military, sort of tan colored type, like
Yeah.
tactical looking boots. And she like puts them on and she like walks around in them. And she says she's a cyber chimp.
A cyber chimp?
Yeah. Which is like one of the characters from that thing that Max was playing, that Super Solver thing, right?
Yeah.
But she saw him doing that. Like he was putting on boots because they have these big boots. He was like, I'm a cyber chimp. And then so she just does it. And now it's become a thing she wants to do because she saw him doing it.
Right.
But I don't think that, oh, she's wearing boys' boots. Or Max is Carmen Sandiego. Maybe he really thinks he's a girl.
Right.
Because when he was the Super Solver character, that was a boy. They're just playing. And you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
He's gender fluid, Cam.
Oh,
I'm saying though?
spirited.
It's like, does my identity as a man come from how I feel about it, or does it come from what I am physically? So for myself, I've had to walk a process, still a process of, wait, I'm a man. Therefore, what is it like? Let me discover what I'm actually therefore designed to do. What am I good at? And that doesn't mean because I'm a man, therefore I can't do X, Y, or Z automatically. I can either do X, Y, or Z, or I can't. I can either develop that skill or that vocabulary, or I can't. But the problem is, in our world, it's like, oh, if you're a woman, you can't do certain things. Therefore, I need to go do those things to prove that I'm not controlled. But you don't even actually want to do them. You're not actually even good at them. You see what I'm trying to say? So it's like a tendency is for women to be like managers, right? They're very good at, amongst other things, one of the things they're very good at, if they develop the skill, if they develop the programming and the right mindset, is managing a household, which is way beyond just stay in the kitchen and make dinner. That's like that's one part of it. You know, it's like, imagine Jeff Bezos when he was building Amazon. If he was like, I'm not going to fucking mail books out. Like that's like slave stuff. But it was literally just him at that point.
Yeah.
Like he tells the story. He's like on his knees, putting books in packages and shipping them out and stuff. And then they like think about, he wants to get knee pads, right?
Yeah.
And his engineer friend's like, why don't we just get like a table to put them on? He was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? He was fucking shipping out the books. He didn't go, that's beneath me.
That's right.
But that's a part of what he had to do. Just like if you're running a household, making sure dinner is available for everybody is a part of that thing. Now, if you're in a relationship and you're like, you know what, I'm really good at that part, and I'm like running a business, but I'm also I'm gonna take responsibility for making sure dinner gets done. Do that. Like, okay, but that's generally not what is happening. What's generally happening is people are like, well, hold on a second. It needs to be 50-50. You need to make 50% of the dinners, and I need to make 50% of this. Otherwise, you're trying to control me. You're trying to enslave me. It's like a competition thing rather than a what actually would be best based on who we are, what we've developed, what we can develop, what I want to develop, etc. You see what I'm saying? And at the moment, it'd be like if I was like, you know what? I want to breathe underwater. I could go out of my fucking way to figure out a way for me to be able to breathe underwater, like without having an air tank or something. Like I need to do some surgeries and all this stuff to be able to breathe underwater. Yes, you could spend your whole life focusing on that. But why not just accept, you know what? In the physical design of human beings, we can't breathe underwater. So what are we capable of? Let's explore that. Instead of just saying, well, I'm not satisfied with that. You don't even know what it is yet. I mean, like we don't even know what we're capable of as human beings because we've all been dumbed down by an education system and ineffective parenting. And the reality is you are going to have situations where girls grow up feeling more like a boy and boys grow up feeling more like a girl. Do you know why? Because their parents fucking created that environment. Even the parents who weren't necessarily pro choosing your gender, just normal people, they created environments where certain things were impulsed more one way or the other with those individual children and so forth, that they ended up being that way.
Yeah.
But how much of the environment is the parent actually directing?
Not very much.
So it's a consequence. You see what I'm trying to, hold on. You see what I'm trying to say? It's a consequence. If the parent was taking full self-responsibility, they would figure out how to support the children to develop to their full potential. And I'm not saying Katie and I get it 100% perfect, because man, fuck, if we had been supported as children from the very beginning, we'd be a lot further along too.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is for our children, they can go even further, and we can support other people to sort their shit out before they have kids, and they can go further with their kids. And so it takes generations.
Yeah.
Right. But we can't look at, there's a fucked up environment, it's producing this fucked up situation, and that's reality. So therefore, oh, you know what it is? We're just not evolving in our mindset to accept transgenderism. It's like, no, it's a consequence. You see what I'm saying? It's a symptom. It'd be like saying, you know what, guys, all these people with cancer, they're not sick. They're just differently eased. They don't have disease. They're just differently eased. And we need to criticize where we accept people who have cancer and stop making them feel bad. Stop making them feel like there's something wrong with having cancer. Stop making them feel like they need, you see what I'm trying to say? It's something that's not correct. It's not best for them.
That's the fat shaming right there. That's like,
exactly.
You know, the whole thing?
Doesn't mean we should make them feel ashamed. And that's the other argument. Well, if we don't make them feel ashamed, they'll just think it's healthy. It's like,
exactly. That's what Pierce is saying. I'm like, that's dumb.
Clearly that hasn't worked. Clearly it's only created a situation where they feel like they need you to change so they don't feel bad anymore. Anytime you're not actually directing the situation, you're leaving it open for someone else to be like, well, I'll direct it. Because you got all these fat people, they're feeling fat shamed. And other people come along and they go, you know what? It's all these fat people. These people just think that we should shame them into not feeling fat or not being fat. But I want to make more money. So I'm going to start a fast food restaurant. And I'm going to impulse everyone through advertising that it's cool to be fat. Because the other people who are thinking, well, it's just the environment will impulse them to not be fat shamed. They're not directing it. They're just like, oh, we'll just, do you see what I'm saying? They're not really directing anything. They're just stuck in the past. Like, well, people weren't fat before when we were shaming them for being fat.
Now, I wanted to connect the points of, well, you can believe whatever you want as long as your beliefs don't hurt anybody. Because you always made this, you would just mention it. You'd be like, but you're teaching this to children. You're getting children to believe in this. And the reason why that's significant is because if the general point is that is the fucking truth, that no one's going to feel good in this world because this world is designed to make sure that you don't feel good so you can try to buy stuff to feel good.
And constantly be stuck in that cycle.
Exactly. Just to keep doing that on repeat. But you're convincing children that the reason they don't feel good is because they're not the right gender. So then you have a bunch of children who are being supported by the system to take physical efforts to physically change their body with hormone blockers and surgery and things like that, where the result of it, if that particular child ends up being like, I still don't feel good. But what's the argument for the suicide rate of people who transition and then still kill themselves? The argument is, well, it's because people aren't being accepted.
Because we've created an environment that makes them feel ashamed of who they are.
Right.
And again, that's the same thing we were talking about earlier with the masks. They're the victim.
Yeah.
They're a victim to society. Instead of, it's like, I'm not saying they're the perpetrator. What I'm saying is within themselves is unresolved emotions, instability. They're not clear on who they actually are. Because if you're clear on who you actually are, you wouldn't really put so much emphasis on your gender. You'd be like, I'm just going to wear what's practical. You know, and in a certain case, practical might mean some really fancy fucking outfit to impress people so you can get something that you know, whatever, it influences them in the current context of the world we live in. You know, be a fucking drag queen, maybe that gets you some kind of position. I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not about controlling what people do or don't do. It's about who the person is and directing themselves within it. That's the point.
And honestly speaking, if I was born today with the same kind of environment and consequence, like within the same family life that I would have had, I would 100% be a girl. Guaranteed.
Oh, like meaning if you were born now in the current context of
exactly. And I still had the same same mom, same brothers, all that stuff. I would 100% be a girl, and my mom would have no idea why, because she's not aware that she had 3 boys, right? So I have 2 older brothers, and I remember hearing this 100 times that I always wanted a girl. 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 And she's like, when I gave birth to you, I was like, okay, you're my girl son.
Yeah.
But you'll be the shoulder that I cry on all that stuff.
And then the
That
society's telling you it's okay to do all this. You're just seeing other people do it. You're not even thinking about it. It's unconscious,
Exactly.
right?
And it's like, then throughout my whole from grade like 6 to grade 12, I would just like, my best friends were the girls. Subconsciously, you know, some other shit's going on in teenage boys' head, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I wasn't processing it like that. I was just like, this is where I'm more comfortable, because guys are
Right.
so like, you know, combative and competitive, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. But that made it so hard for me in the future to be consistent, to commit to something, to do what's considered masculine of building a structure, building a business. That created so much bullshit for me to walk through. What I'm saying is, if I were born now, I would 100% have been a girl, and my mom would just be like, I don't know what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Even though, because there's no fucking training manual about how well, in the mainstream, there's no training manual about how a human being works, how parents influence children, how teachers influence children. We have that.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. All of this is explained in a ridiculous amount of detail in the blogs that we talk about: Creation's Journey to Life and Heaven's Journey to Life. And what has become clear is that if somebody doesn't read that stuff, it's going to be very, very, very extremely difficult and hard to be a good parent, because you're
Impossible.
not, it's actually impossible, because you will not understand.
And the environment's going to impulse you to do all the same shit as everybody else.
Right.
They're going to make you feel ashamed for not teaching your kid, to not lying to your kids about Santa Claus, for example.
Right. Exactly. That's such a good point. Right. And so the thing that, you know, I remember some of my friends who now have Technotutor, they're saying, oh, friends from our mutual friend from high school is talking shit about what you have to say, Asif, because they're saying, what gives you the right to talk about X? What gives you the right to talk about Y? And then he said, I was just seeing where he was going. He said, and he asked, if you know what I tell them, I say experience. I'm like, oh, why is that? He's like, he's making this point of, and I'll just make the point. It's like, why would you listen to the mainstream psychologist, therapist, whatever the case may be, if the result of what they do is this
Right.
world that we're living in? Why would I have to go get a degree to be able to replicate that in order for my opinion to be valid, when it's so clear based off just the people that we work with, the results that they get in their life?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, you look at like Leah Spear or like Carlos and all, you know, all these different, right? I don't know.
Doxing people, bro.
It's okay. Nobody knows how to spell it. But no, it's good. It's like, you can look them up. But I think Carlos is he made a testimonial about his daughter, which is really cool. Right. And so always doxing people, give out their address too. But Cameron's kids, it's like, they're the case studies. And the way I thought about it was, what qualifies me to talk about this is the same way a fucking Olympic racer qualifies to be in the Olympics, getting a fucking result.
Yeah. Even more so, are you now looking within yourself at things that you can change? And I mean, also doing it as well, but I'm saying you're seeing things that you can change within yourself to be a better parent.
Yeah.
Name one fucking person who does that before they have kids. Nobody does that before they have kids.
And I wasn't going to do it myself.
You're already more of an expert on parenting than anybody with kids. Because it's not about experience. I know what you were saying earlier. I understand what you meant by experience or what your friend meant. But when people say experience, like, well, you don't have 4 kids like I have 4 kids. And it's like, so every parent with 4 kids is an expert? Does the experience of being a parent qualify you to know what the fuck you're talking about? It's like if I made a really shitty cake and it was terrible and tasted like crap, I have more experience than you who've never done that before. So I know more? No. I mean, that's the experience part is what's the result of what the person knows? But look within yourself. The concepts that you understand, the principles that you have, that's what will make you a good parent by applying those principles. It's not about some concrete knowledge. There is aspects of it that you need to have concrete knowledge.
Of course, yeah.
You know, like, should I breastfeed my kid or not? You know what I mean? Like when they're 2 months old, should I just take them and stop making them breastfeed and give them formula? Or should I give them solid food at this age? Or there's like things like that. But that can be written down in a fucking book. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could do some research. And if you can process information, that's not that big of a deal.
But in terms of
but that's not the stuff that's like the basic stuff. But there's the other part where you impose all this extra shit on top of your child's psychology, which is like what we're talking about with the transgender, all this other stuff. Like that's the part that you're questioning within yourself of like, oh, should I joke around with my kids about something like, well, if you do that, you're going to burn the house down. And they're like, wait, really? And you're like, oh shit. Like I just made them afraid of playing with that toy because I was trying to joke. You know what I mean? Like I was just joking. Like, I didn't know. Like, what? Why are you fucking joking like that? You see what I'm saying? Like things like that. Both of you, but all the people in our group who don't yet have kids but are wanting to have kids, it's like you're walking this process to realize like, oh shit, this is stuff I need to change. So that by the time you get there, you're already light years ahead of anybody else. And so when these other people you're talking about have kids who are maybe talking shit or whatever, they're immediately going to be like, oh, fuck. And so when their kids come into the world, it's going to be stress, just stress, fear, don't know what to do. Okay, just give them to the system because somebody can figure it out. And then 6 years, 7 years later, they don't even know their kid anymore. You know, another thing I was looking at when you were talking about the trans thing is like, when you're talking about your experience growing up and everything, it's like, how many of these kids that believe they're a different gender or something also believe in Santa Claus? What would you guess?
Probably a high number because
very high.
Santa Claus
Maybe
is
like something close to 100%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody teaches their kid about Santa, right?
Exactly.
So if this kid can't fucking tell the difference between Santa Claus not being real and so forth, how can they tell you what's real? And this is the trick.
Damn.
By even having the discussion about this trans stuff, you've already made the assumption that what's valid is your mind, how you feel, and so forth.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? It's like they've already gotten you to think past this. And what you were saying earlier about the structure and like being masculine, right? That doesn't mean you have to be macho, right? And I know you weren't saying this, but people think like, oh, you just want everybody to go around doing this and fighting and stuff. Like,
Exactly.
no,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm saying. It's a different design. But the reason I brought it up is because if you wanted to reduce any competition, if you wanted to weaken a society so that they can never compete with you or change any, if they think about it, if you want to create a rigid structure of society that never changes, what would you do? You get everybody who could possibly build a new structure or be a part of that or would be effective within it just from a natural perspective to think that's what they should not focus on. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And then you would have the people who their natural tendency would be just to keep and maintain things, be the ones focusing on that.
Aha, nice.
You see?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So it's like everything we're talking about, it's not about we're not coming at this from like a religious perspective. Like God said, there's man and woman and only man and woman should lay together. Dude, if 2 dudes want to butt fuck each other, I don't care. You see what I'm saying? Like, who cares? Let them, you want to have fun. What does it matter?
Yeah.
Do I think that that's some kind of sin? Give me a break. Sin is fucking lying to your kids about Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Two women wanting to have sex or be in a relationship, that in itself is not a sin. The sin is then when you teach kids, because here's the trick. It's like we want to include everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, we need to make people who are straight feel like they're not important or they're less than. You see that?
Yeah.
They're not telling kids that, hey, it's okay, whatever you are, whatever you want to be. The actual impulse, I mean, if you're honest, if you actually look at it honestly, not if you're trying to push an agenda, if you're looking at it honestly, you'll see there is a specific agenda to demonize people who are straight.
Yeah.
To demonize men who are masculine, to demonize women who are feminine.
At least devalue them.
Exactly. It's a deliberate attempt to crosswire everything.
Yeah.
It's not some people are born in this world, they're impulsed, they have these points. We need to make them, they need to have a life of dignity just like anybody else. Absolutely. But that's different than we need to make white people feel ashamed for being white.
But
everybody else needs to feel proud about their thing.
Hang on, because you don't get it because you're a straight man and you're white.
You mean a cisgendered?
Yeah, you're a cisgendered male. You don't get to talk, so you don't get to have an opinion on this.
And that's exactly my point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people will laugh at what I'm saying, like, oh, come on. But then they will literally say, you just say that because of this. So they literally will do the thing that I'm suggesting. And I don't feel disempowered because of it. I'm not like, I need to fight for my self-preservation because I'm a white man. That's not the point. Because it's not about that. It's about society as a whole. You see what I'm saying? What are we actually agreeing to? What are the terms of service? Because if we're saying, if we start cross-wiring everything, what I'm saying is going to happen is society just starts to collapse. Am I fucking prophetic? No, I'm actually saying what's happening right now. Everyone can see it happening.
Yeah.
The pandemic is being used as the reason why it's collapsing.
Yeah.
Guys, it was collapsing before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, what have we been talking about for years now? Like, oh, shopping malls are closing down because Amazon's doing this and there's not gonna be any more jobs and people are graduating with degrees and can't get jobs and they're having to do this. This was all happening well before.
Yeah.
They just took advantage of the fact that everyone's so low vocabulary that they believed the pictures that some politician decided they needed to put into their textbooks. And you don't even remember any of it. All you remember is mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's all you fucking remember. That's all you remember.
Everyone remembers that.
And nucleus is the brain of the cell. That's
And did you know that mitochondria is a separate organism? It's different DNA.
That's pretty
Most
cool.
people don't even know that.
Yeah.
And you get that from your mother.
Oh.
Because your mother, when you're in your mother, it's like an egg, right? It's a cell. And then the sperm comes in and just inserts the DNA and then it becomes a full cell. So where'd the mitochondria come from?
Mom.
From your mom, from her. It was like literally already there.
That's
Right?
cool.
It's like another entity's DNA in there. I'm just saying it's really cool, right? When you actually start studying this stuff, but most people don't. They're just like mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. Okay, I have to do multiple choice matching this and that, and like they just keep going.
Right.
So they heard the word virus and they're like, I don't know. It's like really complicated. And I did terrible in chemistry and biology and I just don't remember any of that. And so then somebody like Dr. Fauci comes along and they apparently know everything.
Yeah.
But you can find two scientists who disagree. And then even a guy who has a fucking Nobel Peace Prize from the 90s comes out and says the PCR tests that they're using are not designed to detect a virus. And then what do you say to that? What does the average person say to that?
Well, what would he know?
He's just some Trump supporter or something, or he's just this or that or whatever, white supremacist, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but what about his credentials? He's like one of the best scientists. Like he's won the gold medal of science.
Yeah.
And suddenly you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't you think the Nazis had some fucking amazing scientists?
Oh yeah.
Like they were all experts. So it's this problem of, just trust the expert. The person's not even actually trusting it. Here's what's really going on. People are zombies. The authority, which is the CNN, says this is reality, and they say yes. That's it.
Yep.
And they don't want to question it. Why? Because if they question it, are they going to be accepted by the group anymore?
No.
They're going to have to stand on their own, and they're going to have to answer for what they're saying, and they're going to have to know something. And our society has been structured in a way where nobody knows anything. Because the most basic fundamental right that a child should have is a high vocabulary.
Yes.
So they can read and process anything for themselves. So it's the one thing we don't focus on in school. Instead, you come in and they're like, okay, we're just gonna start telling you about stuff. They don't go, first of all, I got 30 kids in this classroom. I need to figure out where every single child is at. What is every single word they know and don't know?
Yep.
And every single word I'm about to use, does all these kids process what I'm saying? Because the moment I start talking and I haven't checked that, and one person understands me and one person doesn't, I've suddenly created a class division within my class.
Oh,
Superiority and inferiority.
Yeah.
and
And
obviously,
I'm already now shaping these children's viewpoint towards school just by the fact that I'm not using vocabulary that they all can understand.
Yeah.
And why the fuck do I have them all? Why isn't mom and dad just fucking doing this? Why am I
exactly.
doing this?
It's
Why
not
isn't mom just
practical to
teaching
do
the kid
that.
everything? What's going on? Oh, mom has to go to work. Why does mom have to go to work? Because women are inferior to men if they don't work. Who told you that? Why don't they just stay at home? Because then we would be slaves. So you want to go be a slave at someone's corporation? Like, is anyone even thinking this through at all?
No, not at all. But,
You know,
but
and even the context that I'm bringing through that you guys are aware of already, you know, when you've watched like Century of Self, right? It's like you have all that context. So you're like, yeah, you know, I know how people were programmed with all these things. It's like so obvious.
yeah.
But why aren't they playing that on TV then? You see what I'm saying? Like, why is it fucking like reality TV shows and shit like that?
Because also people wouldn't be able to comprehend that even today.
But aren't those people the ones who are deciding all the programming?
Yeah.
And who are making the money off of it? Aren't they literally just doing it to reduce competition?
Yeah.
And the only reason the TVs exist is so they can sell pharmaceuticals, so they can advertise to you. That's it.
Yeah. And if you don't see now how people are zombies, or if you think that people are, oh, this is as bad as it's going to get, wait 5-10 years. Or actually don't wait.
Don't wait, but
Don't wait.
Yeah.
But you're going to see.
Just imagine for a moment.
You're going to see in 5-10 years, like I guarantee it because I can see the kids now. Like I was a kid myself. I've worked with kids for many, many, many years. And I know what I would have expected from certain age groups. And today, the kids that I come into contact with are nowhere near close to even like what I would say would be like the C student. Like nowhere near. And these are the kids who are supposedly performing well.
It's fascinating because when we go to the playground, there'll be kids there. And Max will be like, oh, look, there's kids. I'm like, go play with them. And Max, he's not shy. He'll introduce himself. That's not the issue because he's very outgoing and so forth. But he'll go up to these kids and he'll start talking to them about stuff. And then they're just like, and he comes back to me. He's like, Cam, they didn't understand what a DOS operating system is. And the kid's like 6 or 7, right? And I'm like, okay, well, did you try explaining to it? He's like, yeah, they don't understand what I'm talking about. So it's like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Can you imagine a person going, well, you're abusing him because you're giving him a high vocabulary. You can't relate to his peers.
That's what people would say.
But when you guys were here, did he have any problem communicating with you guys and having fun and playing?
True, yeah, that's
Yeah.
The problem is not him. The problem is other parents are letting their kids be dumbed down.
Yeah.
Because every kid could be like him.
Yeah.
So, but people would say, oh, you're abusing him by getting him ahead of all of his peers.
And then on top of that, like the problem is that parents think that you're supposed to be involved with your peers, like only people your age. That's who you're supposed to chat with, and that's it. And and it, like everyone has this very limited idea of how things are supposed to be, and that includes like everything, especially education.
Yeah, everyone's just taking everything that's given to them.
Yeah.
So what
And
will
just
people
going
say to shit on us, right? They'll say, "Oh, you guys are brainwashed," but the same people will be like, "Yeah, but kids, whatever they think is real, and they can think for themselves, and whatever they believe themselves to be, that's what's real.
But we're not allowed to do that.
But they don't get brainwashed. Only
They're not brainwashed yet. Yeah. Oh yeah. Good point. Like they're not believing they're transgender because they've been brainwashed by society to believe they're transgender. Give me a break.
You're so fucking brainwashed.
Oh, we're so powerful that we're just brainwashing everybody. It's like by talking.
Yeah.
By talking and showing examples of how you can have all the things that you want in life and you don't have to submit.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
You know, I looked up the definition of the word Islam.
Peace.
No, it's not it.
Is it lamb? Did
What
they just
does
forget the B?
Islam
Islam. My cousin gave me
This
Quran
says
I could
this
get
says the
educated.
word Islam means submission to the will of God.
Oh shit.
That's what peace is, right?
That's a little
What does
different than
Islam,
peace, dude.
What does Islam mean? Hold on. What is URI? Let's see. What is
Submit to
URI?
God. Yeah.
United Religions Initiative. Islam is an Arabic word which means surrender, submission, commitment, and peace.
Okay, so I got
So
the
the
best
pe-
one out of the bunch.
No, I know, but hold on.
No, I was told that, just to be clear.
I know,
was
no,
told
I know that.
Yeah.
I thought that too.
Mhm.
I thought that too. Everyone hears that. That's like the.
Wow.
Do you see
That's
what I'm
the
saying?
party
It's like,
line.
oh, it means peace,
Isn't that what we're convinced of? That if we just submit,
surrender, submission, commitment, and peace.
Yeah.
It's like saying if you submit to the will of God.
that's
You
what peace is.
submit
It
and you
says, thus,
surrender.
Islam can be defined as a path to attain complete peace through voluntary submission to the divine will.
Bill Gates.
What does peace mean in this context? Because
You don't-
people
you
use
don't have
that to be
make
like,
decisions anymore.
they'll
Yeah.
use that to say that Islam is a religion of peace. Like
Huh?
we're here to spread peace to the world. We're peaceful.
Right.
And I'm not saying even the vast majority of Muslims are violent people any more than you could say that about the vast majority of anybody. They're all evil like everybody. It doesn't matter your religion. You're equally fucking retarded. Okay. I'm just saying the idea is like it's propaganda because in America, there's a perception created that Muslims are so oppressed, right?
Yeah.
Where are they oppressed exactly? How about in their own fucking countries, which is why
Yeah.
they came here?
Right.
Okay, first of all, if those other countries were so great, which I'm not saying they're good or not, I'm just saying if they were, why would you want to come here? If it's not better here. So why would you come here if you're immediately going to be oppressed? It's all a bunch of bullshit. But what happens is it's propaganda to tell everybody it's a religion of peace, so we'll accept it. Why is it so important that the elite want everybody to accept Islam? It's
So
funny
they
because
can-
I read this book in the 90s, or maybe it's like the 90s or late 90s when I was a kid. I used to love reading science fiction. And my favorite author was Frederick Pohl. And there was this book he wrote where it was like the future and everybody was Muslim. It was like all of society was Muslim. And it wasn't like everybody was Arab. What I'm saying is everybody was Muslim. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like it was like the default religion, just like we assume Christianity is the default religion in America. It's like everything is Islam, everything was Sharia law, basically. Like meaning everything was built on the religion itself. And I remember reading at the time, and I had so little context for it, and I was just like,
What the fuck?
I just thought it was some weird creative thing the guy was doing.
yeah, like he created a fictional world, and that was
yeah,
cool.
like and everyone's is Muslim, but it's like he was actually trying to say like to show what we had problem with. But the reason I bring it up is because it means submission to the will of God. Okay. Is God real?
No.
Is God a person?
No.
In some it's like, well, I mean, that's what they believe. Okay. Is Santa Claus real?
No.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Oh,
So
that's what people believe.
if a Christian says we should just submit our will to God, they're like okay with it, right? But if a Muslim says that, are they okay with it?
No.
Why not? Isn't it just God? What's the problem?
Well, their God is he's
But
got
is
some
that
weird
God
rules.
real from the Christian perspective?
No.
So what's the problem with them saying it? They're just talking about God. It's the same thing, right?
They mean submit to the rules and doctrines and beliefs that they have. Yeah.
So it's actually submission to the system.
Submission to the system. Yeah.
We know that's what
our
it means.
rules. Submit to our rules.
I'm not trying to
Submit
create a
to the
conspiracy.
culture.
Like, guys, it's not really about God. It's about the. It is about what are you submitting to?
Yeah.
Like, is God standing here going, everyone, here is the rules today? No, that's not happening.
Right.
Where did they get the rules from? It's in a book that was written and it's printed by people.
In other words, if I ask you, what does it mean to submit to God? You'll think, for exactly, a Muslim will think, oh, I have to pray 5 times a day or whatever the case may be. So they'll list off a bunch of rules that they're supposed to be following.
If I said, let's just take
It's
all
really-
that out of it, what does it mean? What would you say?
Submit to
Take all
God.
the rule part out of it. What does it mean?
Submit to God.
Yeah.
What does it
Like,
mean?
what does it mean beyond just pray? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is it beyond those parts? What would you say?
Believe in God.
Doing what's best.
But wouldn't it be like be a good person or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like how it is. I mean, apparently not. That's just like, oh, I don't think that's a part of it. At least in Christianity, they'll pretend like, oh no, it's about being a good person and all this stuff.
Yeah. Of course. My
Is
uncles are good.
No, but I'm saying, is that what people believe? Like, well, okay, yes, it's not just about following God's rules. Like, I mean, is that all you're saying? It's like literally it just means like God has a set of rules. You follow these rules, you're good. Is that it? Or is there something more of substance behind it?
Yeah. You're supposed to spread the word.
You are?
What does that mean? Hold on, but what does that mean?
Share the Quran with people.
Why? So they'll do what? So they'll do the prayers?
Have you heard of an MLM?
Like, hold on. Does God literally just sit up there going like, everybody's praying? All right, we're good today.
God's like,
Is that how he looks at reality? Like, is everyone submitting and doing the things I told him to do? Okay, cool. Or is it like, if you do those things, that will lead to a society where we're
Right.
taking
Yeah.
care of each other? But how does it do that? There has to be some substance to it but the rules aside, submitting to the will of Allah means I understand how reality works. And if I do certain things, I'll get the outcome that would be best. And if I don't do certain things, I'll get the outcome that's best. It's like in Christianity, you have the exact same thing. When you ate from the tree of knowledge,
That makes sense. Yeah.
that was the same thing as disobeying God because he said, don't do it. So it was a representation of I'm not following God's commandments anymore. I'm doing it on my own way. Okay. But what would it mean to follow God's commandments then? You say, it's the 10 commandments, but that didn't happen until later in the Bible.
yeah.
So from the perspective of Adam and Eve, what did it mean to follow God's commandments?
Just obey.
Literally just don't do something he said not to do.
Yeah.
Because he didn't give him a reason.
Right.
Like, other than a consequence he imposed. It wasn't a natural consequence of eating from the tree. It's like, you'll die if you do it. Why? Because I will take away all your rights and privileges of being in the Garden of Eden if you do it, because I want you to. There has to be something where you do what I say, even if there's no reason for it other than something I'm imposing.
It wasn't like the fruit's poisonous or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like if that was the case, it'd be like, hey, that was a consequence. You just fucking lost all your freedom because you poisoned your brain and now you can't think critically. That would make sense. But that's not what it is. Like you disobeyed God. Well, why should I obey God? Because if you obey God, all blessings will flow. Why? Because God has all the blessings. He could just literally snap his fingers and give them to you, but you didn't do what he said, so he's not going to do it. Is that really what God is? Like he's just sitting up there like, if you don't just
He's sitting up there with like a list and he's checking it twice.
right?
To find out who's naughty or nice. Yeah, it's so funny.
It's like if you just do what I say, you'll get the presents.
Huh.
Right? So my point is, why is it a coincidence that the left politically is super like pro-Islam, like, hey, they can't do anything wrong. Like, don't criticize that. Remember, why was it such a problem that Trump banned travel from certain countries?
Because it was a Muslim ban is what they called it.
That's what they called it, right? But
Yeah.
what he was saying was, first of all these countries were on the list provided by the State Department from Obama's administration.
Yeah.
And the purpose of it was that these countries didn't do all the background checks and everything necessary. So when people are coming from those countries, we really don't know who they are. Like their systems in those countries don't do everything required. So it'd be very easy for like someone who's nefarious to slip through their system coming into our country. Versus if they're coming from Canada, we know they do sufficient background checks. We're not worried about Canada. They're not saying ban Muslims from Canada.
Right.
So he never said ban Muslims. It was like these countries, and they were like banning Muslims. Oh, how come they're all Muslim countries? But how come like the countries like Indonesia, which has the highest population of Muslims, wasn't on the list?
How come North Korea was on the list?
Exactly. There was countries that were predominantly Muslim that weren't on the list.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then the question is, okay, so clearly it wasn't about literally Trump is an anti-Muslim person. So then why did they make it about that?
Damn.
Why is it that so important that we have to accept that Muslims are great people? They're so amazing. But what do those people simultaneously think about Christians?
That they're hypocrites?
That they're terrible people. They're bigots. They're racists.
Yeah.
But have you ever met like the average Christian person?
Yes.
An average Christian person? Are they like, they're just friendly, normal people, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're good people, meaning like ultimately.
You're just saying they're no different
just normal, average people.
They're not
just people.
Help you. They'll
neo-Nazi,
probably
white
help you.
supremacist.
If they can't, they won't. It's like normal.
Yeah.
It's not like people who are Muslim are just infinitely better than if they're Christian and vice versa.
Right.
They're just human beings who have belief systems, right?
Right.
So why is it so important that those people are defended?
Wow.
Because otherwise they'll be systematically oppressed and
But how many
genocided.
Muslims are there in the world?
A lot.
Like 1 billion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that's really going to happen. And would you rather live in a Muslim predominant country or a Christian predominant country?
Definitely Christian predominant country.
Why is it all the Muslim people want to come to a apparently Christian predominant country?
More freedom, probably.
When everyone also knows it's the most racist place that's ever existed and
Yeah.
hates people from those countries. Is that
Yeah.
really what's going on?
No.
So who is it that actually buys into that logic?
The average person.
No, stupid fucking white people. That's what it is, man. Like those are the people who buy into it.
Yeah.
But do you see what? Okay, just to go back real quick. What is the point, though?
Submission to Islam.
Submission. It's submission to the system. That's all it's about. I mean, is it a coincidence that the meaning of the word is fucking surrender, submission, commitment, and peace? And you also have all these countries where they wear hijabs and all this shit. And why do the women wear the hijabs?
So that the men don't want to get all these
No, but why did they say they wear it?
to keep themselves modest for their husbands.
Modesty, right? Because you know we knew the consul for Qatar here when they were here. We used to go to their house like every weekend, and we talked to the wife. Her name was Najat, and we were just asking her like, you know, why do you wear it? Because you clearly don't have to. You're in the United States. You don't have to wear it, so you must be choosing to wear it. Or is it just because you keeping up appearances? Like, why are you doing it? She's like, no, it's a sign of modesty. While we're in one of their sitting rooms with literally fucking gold-plated teapots and fucking like the most ornate and like white tile, marble staircase, everything. They imported the tile from Italy. And it's like a palace. And they have servants. Like when you come in, the servants greet you. And then they take you to one of the sitting rooms, and then you go to the other sitting room to sit and have the tea. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Maybe
where's
she
the
meant
modesty?
She meant like sexually modest.
Yeah, clearly. But it's like what you were. But it's not an actual real modesty.
Right.
I'm pretending to be. It's like a fake. It's like the mask. I'm wearing the mask because I care about people. It's like you don't actually care about people. You're just wearing it to pretend you care. To make
Right.
it look.
It's like
it's
all the
more
Christians
about-
wear a cross. It's
Exactly.
like this. It's like, okay, what do you do with you? I smoke weed. Like I fuck around. Like
Right. But it's like, but I'm a Christian. See, and it's like, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
You see, so
we're supposed to. Okay.
Everything comes back to this point of submitting to the system. Why? Because how is it that you can maintain control over the system if you have people constantly challenging it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're creating a consequence. If people don't stand up, we're creating a consequence where it's like in China, you can't fucking buy a plane ticket if you have a low social credit score. And everything's tracked electronically. And the people love blockchain technology, right?
Yeah.
But you know, the problem is when you just put someone on a blockchain, You can't change it. So imagine they use blockchain technology to determine if you violated something, it goes into the blockchain. A human can't go, oh, that was a mistake, or oh, okay, well, you changed it, so we'll do. Like the whole point is no interference.
It goes on your permanent record.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it's
Yeah.
like once you're banned, you're fucking banned. And what happens when it's an AI doing all of it?
Then you're fucked.
You know, and it's
I,
like,
I,
okay,
I realized was yesterday why you wanted to watch Brazil, or like the context that you're taking us to watch Brazil.
uh-huh.
It was like everything becomes so like you're just a number. If you want to consent, and the reason why it clicked for me is because I was talking to a college professor, and they were saying that now because everything has gone online, they're saying it's and before in person, they would have two versions of a test, so that people sitting beside each other they have different versions, right? So 1,
Yeah.
2, 1, 2. So you can't look beside and cheat off of.
Yeah.
It's the same test. It's just the answers were switched around, so you can't just copy it down.
Right.
So you just mark the two of them. Now it's like every person has a different test because it's all open book because it's online, right?
Oh yeah.
And so they're like, fuck that. So the debate is like in math, they don't want to give partial marks. They just want it to be auto-corrected. It's just like, boom, either 4 points or no points. But people are going to lose so many marks off of that because
That's why everybody's failing, like Drake was talking about.
right? But it's like they lose so many marks because they could have got 3 out of 4 for doing all the steps right, but they just made some calculation error. And so the point is, the teacher that I was speaking with, he was saying that he's like, so the way I see it is what I share with my students is it'll be auto-corrected, but if you see something that's wrong, just bring it up to me and then we'll review it and give you what you deserve, right? And he says it's been good for 80 to 90% of the students. The other ones who don't really care, no problem. And that's when it clicked. I was like, that's why in Brazil, it's like it starts off with that lady who needs to get her husband on. I fucking that movie was wild. But
Didn't you watch it and then feel like, was I on drugs the whole time?
Yeah, exactly. But at least the beginning, that little impact of like she waits in the line to get to the guy. She's like, oh, I need to get this reversed. Like my husband got taken away for the wrong reason. It was the wrong husband. The letter was off by one.
They smudged a letter and then the forms went through the system and then
Yeah.
there's a consequence. They killed this one dude, but it was really this other guy.
Or captured him or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
well, I think they
basically-
actually deleted him. Yeah.
Okay. So basically it's like, he was like, oh, you have to go to that line. She's like, I just came from that line. Like I just came from that department. He's like, okay, yeah. Well, do you have this thing? She's like, no, they didn't tell me I needed that. He's like, okay, now you have to go back to that line. She's like, fuck. And that's when it clicked. When I was talking to that guy, I was like, oh, and now you're explaining the blockchain point. I'm like, oh, I see how it's just going to be like,
They can't do anything about it. It's like, sorry, you have to have the form.
it's going to be like you answer your questionnaire, are you black? Okay. Are you transgender? Like, what's your gender? Okay. Now, based off this questionnaire, here's what you're allotted. Here's what you get. And it's just like, identify with your group. Forget about your individual freedom. And even if it's not what you need, it's like the process in order to get that will be so ridiculous because everything's so automated. It'll just be a big bureaucracy.
Our adherence to individuality is going to be the reason why we become part of the collective. But why is it that with no individual rights? But think about the average spiritual.
Say that again.
person.
Say that again. Say that
I said
again.
our adherence to individuality is going to be why we just get swept up into the collective with no individual right. But what is that the average spiritual person begging for?
For that thing.
To be one with everyone.
To dissolve.
And they, whether they realize it or not, they're using it to justify not taking full self-responsibility for the current system we live in.
Yeah.
The system that runs things on Earth. They're saying, well, it doesn't matter because later I'm one with everything. The energy matters. It's like, this is what you're asking for. And who was it? Was it one of you telling me something about, somebody was like talking about, they read something online about us that
they're
like,
the
was it you
Borgs.
telling me about? Oh yeah. Okay.
What?
And about the Borgs, about like the Borgs. And it's like, basically, I guess people, that fear of like, you're in a group and you're like submitting yourself to the hive
machine.
mind or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What's a Borg?
Like a
It's like from
cyborg.
Star Trek. It's like from
Oh,
Star Trek.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
this
it.
race.
That's it. There it is.
Yeah. You know, and it's like they're all individual beings, but they're really just all one being. That's how they see themselves. And it's like they're not actually individual. And it's like, if you're truly an individual, truly, how can you go into a group and then lose your individuality? Why would you work? The only reason you'd be afraid of that is because you know there's nothing unique about you. You know what I mean?
Fuck.
So the way I look at it is, it's not about whether I'm truly an individual or anything. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm an individual. Like, I am. Like, you're in your body. You're experiencing life from your perspective. You're a fucking individual. What is there to debate about? Now, what rights do you have? What choices can you make? That's the question, right? The only choice that I see is to do what's best. Someone says, well, how can you determine what's best? Okay. So you admit you can't determine what's best. Or can you? Because if somebody says, well, how can you determine what's best? Okay.
How do you feel about the masks? Oh, I don't like them. They're terrible. I can't believe
Well, not even that. Not even that. So it's like,
usually they're saying that from the context of they can determine what's best for themselves, but they can't determine what's best for someone else.
right. Okay.
Right. That's true.
Right.
I think that's an important distinction, because I want
That's
to.
a good point. It's like, how can you determine what's best for somebody else?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before, but we could talk about it again briefly. It's like, okay, determining what's best for somebody else. Does that imply I'm saying, you know what, Drake, I know you really like engineering, but I don't think that you should be an engineer. I'm going to determine that's best for you to be a doctor. So now you're going to have to go to medical school and do all this stuff and do your whole life doing something you don't actually want to do because I've determined it's best for you. Okay. Is that actually best for you to do that?
No.
Okay. So that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
First of all, just to get that out of the way. It's not about I'm determining what's best for you. Like, I'm just arbitrarily choosing what's best for you. That's not what it means that I can determine what's best. It's people not understanding the word determine.
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say? Like, determining can mean assessing, evaluating, understanding, coming to terms with.
Yeah.
Not deciding.
Distinguishing.
I'm not saying we need to decide. I can decide what's best for you. I can determine what's best for you. I can figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, if you said to me, I don't think it's best for me to ever drink water, I'd be like, dude, it's definitely best for you to drink water. Now, should you drink exactly the same amount I should?
No.
Probably, maybe not. I mean, you have a different level of hydration. You're a different size than me, like different chemistry in your body. Like, there is an individual level for you that's probably on an average basis the right amount of water for you to drink average basis daily.
Yeah.
If I could sit down and look at all those variables and I had understanding, I could determine that point. Now, I can't determine that right now. I don't have access to all those variables, but I do know it's best for you to drink water. That's common sense. Yeah. Everyone knows this, right?
Yeah.
That's best. So we can agree on that. If you said to me, I don't ever need to eat food, I'd be like, that's not best for you.
Yeah.
Am I controlling you by saying that?
No.
No. If any more than my child says, I'm not going to eat anymore, I'm like, that's not best. I'm not controlling them by doing that. I'm saying it's not best for them to do that.
Yeah.
If I said to someone else, your kid should eat, you should feed your kid, would they say, you're trying to control me? I'd be like, that's not best to not feed your kids.
Right.
You see, does it make sense?
Yeah.
So determining something is best, I would say, let's start with the basic points that we can agree on first. Because we're not even meeting those standards. And yet we want to talk about transgender and all this other stuff. And it's like, how do you know it's best for me then to go along with you being comfortable? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like if you can't determine what's best for another person, you can only determine what's best for you. How is that going to work in a reality where other people affect you and you affect other people?
Right.
Yeah.
And then what's ironic about it is then it's the same people who have that idea, that thought, that belief that you can't determine what's best for somebody else, that always want to control what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, well, look, hold on. Just do your own thing then. and I'll do my thing. And my thing is I'm going to convince you and everybody else that we can do what's best. But people are not internally logically consistent. Because it's not about logic, it's about energy, it's about feelings. You can point out the most obvious basic flaw in their logic and they will just react, and they'll change the subject and they'll skip to a different point because like you see like the mind just like jumps to other things. It's like, well, yes, but da, da, da. And suddenly you're having a conversation about something else.
Yeah.
That's why I like these chats. Like they're very nonlinear. Like
Yeah.
these podcasts that we do, we just like talk about things, we skip around. That's okay. But that's how people think, right?
Yeah.
That's how they argue. That's how their beliefs are. They don't actually sit down and work it out systematically.
Like 1 point, walk it to the end. Okay.
If we sat on this podcast and specifically went through detail, bam, 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 like that, how long would it be before a person turned it off?
5 minutes, if
Right.
even that. Also, Kim, you got to
And then
drop that
how
wrapper
many-
in your hand.
Oh, is that being noise?
Yeah.
And then how long is it going to be before we get even to like 5 points?
Yeah, it's gonna
And
take a
does
long
someone
time.
need us to explain everything to them?
They shouldn't.
You see, so it's like we're more demonstrating how we're coming to conclusions about stuff, the principles we're looking at. Just like, and I'm not afraid to stand in the face of somebody saying, you're a bigot, you're a this, you're a that. Because I know people are going to say that because they don't want to look at the logic or the reasoning or the common sense behind what somebody's saying. It's like with Islam. It's like, if I fucking hated Muslims, why would I be friends with you, Asif? You know what I mean? But somebody will say, because I said something that Islam is about submission, they'll be like, that's Islamophobia or something, right? Like I am afraid or I hate Muslim people.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? But they don't want to look at the actual logic of it, which is, okay, but then why would I associate people who are Muslim or culturally?
Trying to convert them to Cameron, because you're trying to convert them for everybody to be Christians. That's why.
That's true. Yeah, I want them to be Christians so they can just
The
fucking
Christians,
do nothing.
exactly. Or Buddhism. Which one are you at right now?
It's funny because Christians especially, they get this point that compassion is necessary, but then at the same time, it's like, how can you read the Bible and hear Jesus' story and then be like, therefore capitalism and everybody just doing that is the best way to do it? It's like, can you imagine if Jesus came back, he'd be like, this is not what I meant.
You guys are really fucking up.
He's like, and again, it's like I said before. So what you're saying is Bill Gates is the best Christian.
Because he's the best capitalist.
He's the best capitalist. Jeff Bezos. All the people on the right complain about as trying to control the world just did the thing that they're defending.
Yeah.
They just became the best capitalists. And how can you say that the purpose of competition is for everybody to have a shot?
It's clearly not.
How can you use competition to better the lives of everybody? If the end result of competition is
There's a winner,
like-
there's a loser.
in this world, who's the most competitive?
Yeah.
The most ruthless people. End of story. The most ruthless people. And you can say, well, oh no, but ultimately, if you try to do things that way, it'll end up to bite you in the butt, and you'll learn your lesson and all that stuff. It's like, well, is Jeff Bezos learning that lesson? Mark Zuckerberg? It seems like they're just controlling everything, and what's going to end up happening is they're going to turn everything into shit. And then we all learned the lesson, which was self-responsibility is the key, self-awareness, self-realization. That's the key. It's not like there's no system itself by itself that's the perfect answer.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And that's why I'm not talking shit on capitalism itself. It's the starting point of ourselves within it. That's the problem. That's the only problem. Because if you just say it's just capitalism, but then you don't educate everyone effectively to have an actual ability to compete, the problem is competition won't become, let's get the best product to everybody. It'll be, let's make the cheapest fucking possible product that we can then impulse everybody to emotionally get attached to buy and outcompete everybody and then jack the price up. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if competition produced the best products, we wouldn't have Doritos. And then you say, oh, that's what people want. They're just giving people what they want. No, a baby wants breast milk.
Yeah.
At what point do they start wanting Doritos?
when they're
The moment that they put
marketed.
fucking chemicals in it that is like a neurotoxin that excites parts of your brain that creates a dopamine rush that makes you fucking want those things. And then the impulsing of all the celebrities and culture and everything about why it's a normal part of your life. It's like we have to become honest about how this system works, because the only way this is going, if we don't, is total submission. And it's funny because when we met with Bernard, what, over 10 years ago now, that's what he explained, was this whole system is moving to absolute total control of the human being in every way. Every single thing you do will be controlled and monitored at all times to prevent you from harming anyone, because you can't be trusted, because your mind is unstable and you're not willing to choose to do what's best. So you have to be controlled. And so the more people resist the idea of let's stand up and do what's best to create a system that's best for all, you're literally saying you can't be trusted. Please control me, control everybody so no one harms anybody. You're creating the scenario that you think that you're trying to avoid. You see what I mean? Because you're just reacting, you're not directing it to the outcome that's actually best. How many
And
people?
That's why I don't
Yeah.
I don't judge Bill Gates, because he just doesn't
Dude,
understand.
he's the last person you should judge.
Yeah, because
He's actually fucking doing something.
he's the only one taking responsibility for the same shit that everybody believes. Nobody can change. Human nature is evil and all this stuff. Right. But it's like, I don't judge him because he doesn't know what we know. And so if you feel dumb, don't use that as an indicator of somebody's making you feel dumb. Because there's something that you don't understand that you're reacting to. And that point in and of itself, you not willing to become educated in these manners, in these topics, whatever it is you stand for, that is the problem that you're fighting against, whether it be racism, xenophobia, ageism, sexism, transgenderism, the anti-transgenderism, or whatever the case may be. Whatever you're fighting for, it's all just because no one's willing to educate themselves. And that's the point of, well, if you want somebody else to change their views on something, you have to be willing to do that. There's only one way to do that. And if you're thinking that point of, well, not everybody's going to be able to change their beliefs and we're going to run out of time and all this stuff. It's like, no, that it just depends on how fucking long you take to realize there's nothing else that you should be doing other than focusing on this one point. Because if you're thinking, oh shit, I don't know if we're going to be able to change this world in time. Yeah. So then start helping by doing your part and sharing this process with people. So what I'm saying is, the only way you'll realize that this world can change, two things have to be satisfied. You have to be doing this process yourself. Go to self-perfected.com. You'll see the principles. You'll see DIP Lite, which is the free course to actually understanding what the fuck is going on inside of you. Join the Facebook group Self Perfected, because in that group, that's where we give the step-by-step to actually having success in your relationships, actually having success financially, so that you can focus on the second thing. So the first thing is doing this process for yourself. The second thing is sharing this process with others. If you're not doing that, there are people here who need to start doing the process, but there are a lot of people here who are doing the process for themselves. And even if you got one point inside you that was like, holy shit, like, oh my God, I can change. And you aren't sharing that with other people, what does that say about you? Now, if you're working towards doing what we do, becoming a distributor and sharing this process with people, but you're just kind of lackadaisical about it, yeah, it'll come when it comes. What does that say about you? You're still doing it within your comfort zone. You're not actually willing to push yourself to develop yourself. And what I'm saying is, you're not going to be happy with yourself until you do. The only way I see that made sense to me through my personal experience and for everybody around me to not feel despondent or depressed about the future or pessimistic is by doing your part. Just like a soccer game, when I play a soccer game and I truly play my best and the team still loses, I don't feel bad. The only time I feel bad is if I fucked around, played like shit, let my mind get the best of me, and our team failed and we lost pretty bad. Then I'm like, fuck, I'm so mad that I didn't leave it all out there. I'm so mad that I didn't give it my best. That's what you're doing with your life. If you are not on this side of the equation, sharing this process with other people, then you're not doing the best you can to make a difference. So don't try to convince yourself that you are. If it's not your fucking life purpose to share this with other people and support others to actually develop themselves so that they can see through all of this, well, then what is your purpose? That's all. So other than that, that's why I'm here. That's why Drake's here. We're here to support you in developing your understanding of how things go. That's what Mitchell is here for. Kian, David, Jesper, all these guys, right? We're here to support you to understand what we understand so that you can have a great life and then support the people around you to have a great life. Because just like Cameron said, what is he supposed to do when Max is happy and healthy and stable, but the people around him are not? It's the same way I feel about myself. That's why I share this with my friends, my family, and the people that are closest to me. Because now they can all see what I see. Not because they got brainwashed into it, is because they got the ability to process information and not be emotional about things. So now we can discuss things. So that's what we're all here to do. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Drake.
No, I mean, if you're not part of Self Perfected, obviously join Self Perfected. And if you're listening to this from inside of Self Perfected, use your time wisely. Like, recognize that we don't have a lot of time left because what's coming next is just going to be more control, more zombies. And so,
yeah. And as each person stands up and moves themselves, it creates more time.
Yeah.
So it's not, you don't need to go into a despair like, oh no, like we're screwed. It's like, but if you don't stand up, that's why it just our world deteriorates. You see what I'm saying? So it's not it's inevitable. We're creating the future right now. We're in this moment in time where what we do determines it, because what the elite are doing is just trying to control. Otherwise they'd be creating. They don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart. We have to step up. It's only because we've been on this side of the tracks of not being in the elite that we know, hey, what it's really like. So we can have the opportunity, the ability to see, okay, we need to stand up. We need to help everybody in the world, not just try to protect what we have, right? That's the difference that we bring into it. So we'll see you in the group. And what else? Is that it?
Reach out. If there's things that you're not understanding, reach out, talk with us one-on-one, and we're here to support you. So there's me, Kian, Drake, Mitchell, Jess, Jasper, David, who else? The whole squad. You guys know who we are.
Jenny, Sarah, Serena, Elizabeth, Jack. I'm just making up names.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Those people will all be in here next week. That group is growing really fast. So.
Exactly. Because more and more people are getting it. So become part of it sooner rather than later, and you'll see your life get better. So until next time. Yeah.
Peace.